We ready, Jesse?
1 second.
I see this. I saw the YouTube thing. That's why.
I know. Ready to go.
Good evening, everyone. Today is December 1st, and it is the December meeting of Manhattan Community Board 4. My name is Lowell Kern. I'm the chair of Community Board 4 for tonight's meeting, and then my term is up. As part of our agenda is elections tonight. Our first presentation tonight, we have Captain Robert Gault, who's the commanding officer of the 10th Precinct. He's going to give us an update on what's going on in Chelsea, and hopefully if he has time and doesn't have to go arrest somebody, he will answer some questions. I am going to say that we have a presentation at 7 o'clock, so I am giving Captain Gault exactly a half hour. So if the questions keep coming in as they usually do, unfortunately, we're going to have to cut them off tonight. But Captain, it's all yours.
Thanks, Lowell. Hello, everyone. Happy holidays. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. I'll just go right into a little bit of an overview, how we basically did for the year, and then moving on past that, how we're doing in the last 28-day period. Can everyone hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. All right. So, we're coming up on the end of the year. We're, believe it or not, obviously people are seeing things that, not everyone feels safer when they're walking around. We can talk about that, but for overall index crimes, believe it or not, we are down 1% for the year, for a total of, this last 28-day period, which just ended, for 908 crimes this year versus 917 last year. But it's not really all good news, though, because really what's driving a lot of that decrease is a lot less burglaries this year, because we've been opened, and you're not seeing like the hard lockdown type style burglaries that we were seeing last year. And burglaries, are typically, even though it's classified as a violent crime, it's typically viewed as a property crime. And then grand larcenies, we are also down. So that's the year metric. Like I said, though, there's a couple of concerning indicators that we're up in, and they're the areas that you really don't want to be up in. So we're up in robberies 125 to 115 on the year, and that's a 8.7% increase. And then we're showing a 17% increase on felony assaults. That's your aggravated assaults and aggravating a factor, whether that be a stabbing, a shooting, any other kind of aggravating factor. So that's 117 versus 100 for a 17% increase. We're another problematic area that we're seeing a real increase in crime is grand larcenies of vehicles. So GLAs, grand larceny auto. Significant increase of 57 year to date versus 44 for a 29.5% increase. And when you look at these grand larceny autos, a lot of it is, very much preventable. What we're finding is people are, whether they're making a delivery or they're just jumping out to do something real quick, they're leaving cars unattended running, and within minutes, the car is no longer. There's opportunists out there lurking that if you leave property down, or if you don't attend to your car and it's running, you assume the risk that your car will no longer be there. Some of the robbery stuff that we were talking about, concerning to me, we're seeing a lot of these robberies are not, your classic robbery where you would think like somebody's walking down the street and, somebody jumps out of an alleyway with a gun and they rob them, or like a bank robbery kind of thing. That's not really what we're seeing a lot of. What we're seeing a lot of, and we actually have a local pattern, because when we analyze these crimes, we like to break them down to patterns, to precision policing model. And when we work on things in pattern, a lot of times we're more effective. So we have a robbery pattern right now, a local robbery pattern, and it involves these drugstore robberies. So these type of robberies are really starting as like a shoplifting. We call them in the police department shoplifting gone bad. So the person goes in there intending to basically clear things off the shelf and walk out, and they get engaged by the store security, at which time a weapon is either produced or there's an imminent threat of use of a weapon. And one of the patterns, that attributes to that one pattern that we're looking at right now. And what we're finding is, these are desperate individuals that are, I believe it's driven by addiction, because when we arrest them, there's typically a crack pipe on them or some sort of contraband. Desperate individuals that are going into retail establishments and just helping themselves. And the loss prevention people, when they engage, are oftentimes met with either a hypodermic needle, a knife. Sometimes they get assaulted, they get punched. So it's very concerning to us. We're doing a very good job in terms of the follow-up investigation. What we do to address that oftentimes is, I have my NCOs, they go out, they establish a relationship with the loss prevention officers. They'll go over there and, try and elicit as much information. We'll do the extended video canvases. And when we can identify these people, typically it's the same people doing the same crimes over and over again. We have a problem in the city right now with serious recidivism. And when we're arresting them, and we're making a lot of arrests with these, unfortunately, we're not seeing them being held in. And there's, we can talk about that. That's a problem though. And these kind of robberies, they would typically be bail eligible, but what we're seeing is they're not, notwithstanding the fact that they could be held on bail, they're just not being held on bail. And they're coming back out, they're getting out on supervised release, and we have the recidivism problem. So I'd be happy to talk a little bit more specifics, but those are the areas that I'm most concerned right now, is these kind of these robberies that are typically the larcenies gone bad in the drugstores. I have a real concern for what we're seeing on the West Coast, these smash and grab kind of things. We haven't had an incident, thankfully, in the 10th precinct of any kind of like mass smash and grab. But, I have a preparedness plan. I've been working with some of the people up in Hudson Yards too, because, they have very high end kind of retail establishments over there. And that would be a concern for me if we had a crew that went in and did something like that. So we're fully into the holiday season right now. So we all have to be mindful. We have to be vigilant, and, we have to stay prudent when we're out there.
All right, thank you, Captain. Does anyone have questions for Captain Gault? Maybe, no? All right, go ahead, Katie.
Thanks. So you mentioned, Captain, thank you, by the way, for taking the time to come speak with us. You mentioned that some of the people who are doing the drugstore robberies are being let out, even though the crimes would be bail, they could be held. And I was just wondering, do you have a sense of why that's happening? Is it a question of resources being overwhelmed on the incarceration end, or do you have a sense of why it's happening?
Well, I think ultimately it's a policy decision. It's not happening due to a lack of effort and a lack of good policing from the police department. That would really be a question. I mean, what we do when I see a pattern recidivist, somebody that, when I look at their profile, because I get very involved when these arrests occur. Like, it doesn't stop with the arrest. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll look up and see, all right, what is this individual's history? Oftentimes they have open cases. They're arrested numerous times throughout the year. And I'll take it one step further. If it's somebody, I don't want to be doing this each time, but I'll do what's called an executive conferral, where I'll reach out to a higher level at the district attorney's office and say, hey, this is what's happening in, the 10th precinct right now, where we're seeing, a trend in this area of criminal activity. We were fortunately able to make a summary arrest. And when you look at this individual's profile, there's some really bad indicators. So can we give this one a little extra scrutiny? And if possible, can we request bail? Can, you know, and, you know, quite frankly, I mean, it doesn't, oftentimes the DA's office will cooperate in so much as they will request bail, but sometimes that's not always the case too. Like if it's, for example, if it's a robbery and, you know, it's equally problematic and concerning for me if somebody threatens to stab me with a hypodermic needle, or if they actually display and produce it. I mean, that's traumatic experience. I mean, I've never been, you know, a crime victim like that, but I could only imagine, you know, that you're not going to sleep well that night. There's issues with that. And what we're finding is there is a reluctance to even charge, you know, at a higher level, like a robbery like that. They would, you know, typically if there was no weapon produced or something like that, they may be inclined to what they would call in the DA's office, derate it to a misdemeanor charge. That's a policy decision. They, you know, ultimately the DA's office has very broad discretion in terms of, you know, crimes that they want to pursue aggressively and crimes that they think that there's mitigating factors or whatever. So that's really a question, you know, for other parts of the criminal justice system, but this is what we're seeing. And then, you know, just because they ask for bail, judges have obviously discretion too. I don't know what their thought processes are, but it seems that there is a trend towards bail reform and going soft on individuals that are recidivists. So it's concerning to me, and I think it's probably concerning to the people on the call as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Renaud, go ahead.
Thank you, Captain Gault, for taking the time to come and speak to us today. You mentioned that a lot of the people involved in these robberies tend to have mental health issues or at least substance abuse issues, which one might say are related. Do you know if, say, after you arrest them, if anybody gets involved from the mental health side of things? I don't know who that would be, or do you know if the city gets involved? Or I get the sense that, you know, part of the, even if you were to lock these people up and then at some point in time they get out, very likely to happen if you don't really solve the source of the root of the problem.
You cut off a bit, but I think the question was, what is the level of involvement once they're released to get them help? Is that the question? So, you know, obviously we're not clinicians. We're law enforcement. We do the arrest, we do the investigation. We'll charge them criminally. That's not our area of expertise. What I do.
Did we just lose the captain?
Yeah, I think we lost him.
I think we lost him.
Oh, he's back.
Are we back up?
You're back up. Yeah,
All
go
right.
ahead.
So yeah, to answer your question, you know, obviously that's not an area of our subject matter expertise. When I track these cases and I actually look up to see what happened when the individual is released from court, oftentimes what you'll see is supervised release. I don't know what the level of supervision is though. You know, presumably that would be an area that there should be significant follow-up in terms of drug testing, or are they going to a program and are they being held accountable? But like I said, we can offer services to homeless people. We can offer services to people in need of many things but after we arrest them, we basically turn them over to the courts, and then the courts supervise how things are done at that point.
Thank you.
Yep.
Tina, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Hi. With parole revocation changing, I mean, now with the new, with the governor announcing that technical reasons are not going to cause parole, or is going to be an exception now to requiring people to come to go back to jail. Are you concerned that the problem is going to get worse
Yes, because oftentimes these individuals that we're arresting were released on.
Okay, that's a little bit of a
Or in jail.
concern.
And when they're paroled, it's kind of like they actually owe time, but they were kind of given a reprieve. And when they go out and reoffend, whether it's a technical reoffense or a violent reoffense, it's an indicator that they have not changed their life to comport with the rule of law.
Okay.
Tina, did you have a follow-up? You looked like you wanted to say
It's
something else.
a bit of a concern because isn't the change taking place in a few months, or I forget exactly when? I
read about it probably much like you. I read about it in the news. I was very much concerned. I'm also have concerns about the decarceration movement. I mean, there's so many more, predicate criminals that are out on the street that used to be, incarcerated. And that again is a policy decision. I'm not a policymaker, but I'm concerned like you are. And I can tell you, I see it through a different lens. And it is, as a city resident, I have real concerns about it. I think everyone probably here too, like I kind of qualified my initial crime overview. I was like, oh, you'll probably be surprised to know that we're technically down in crime for the year. And I explained that as like, those are like property type crimes or whatever, but the level of disorder and the level of violence that I'm seeing, and sometimes it's how you feel, you're walking around, you want to feel safe. So it's a hard thing to kind of quantify sometimes with a stat. We track these stats. Sometimes there's a general feeling of lawlessness and disorder that should be concerning. And I think, maybe a lot of it could probably be attributed to some of the public policies that have taken effect.
All right. Anyone else have questions for Captain Gault? All right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your being here.
We do have one hand.
I have a hand from the public, Jesse. I didn't see that.
Yeah, you have one hand from the public raised, Pamela Wolf.
Okay, let's hear what Pamela has then.
I'm bringing you over now.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't see that. Pamela?
Are you with us?
Pamela?
Yeah, there we go. Hi.
You had a question for the
Hi,
captain?
Captain. Just,
Hi, Pamela, how are you?
I'm okay. This is a quick thank you. The community has become pretty well resigned to the fact that we have the barricades at both ends of the precinct block, and they don't seem to be going away. But they are now being rather well looked after, and they only very occasionally block a crosswalk. When that happens, I contact Jarrett, and he deals with it immediately. And I just want to thank you for that care. They look a whole lot better than they used to. That's it. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you. We'll try and keep them tidy for you.
Carrie, you have a question?
Yeah, real quick. Sorry, I was in the other room stuck. I went to a build block meeting recently, and I just wanted to clarify, or you can clarify for me, what the policy on masking is, because the community had to ask. Thank you for doing those, by the way. But the community had to ask the officers multiple times to put masks on, and it was in the joist, so it was in an enclosed space. So if you could just clarify that for me, because I think there was some concern.
It's certainly advisable that we would like our officers, when they're interacting in close proximity with the public, we advise them to wear masks. So I apologize for that. If they were engaging with you in close proximity, it would have been advisable for them to have a mask on.
Do you have a policy in general, or has it shifted?
I believe that is the
back now.
I haven't researched the policy to date today. I mean, these things are kind of fluid. the policies are changing, the CDC is constantly coming out, and like the NYPD kind of, as things change, we react. The last I checked the policy is if you are engaging directly with members of the public in your capacity in the NYPD, you should be wearing a mask. I can certainly hope to pass that along.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you, Carrie. Anyone else? Open season. I just got another question from the public, Jesse. Viren, in the meantime, Viren, go ahead.
Very quick question as a follow-up to Pam's question. The barricades are sort of much better than they used to be, but they still occupy a major chunk of the sidewalk, especially on the 7th Avenue side. 8th Avenue side is a kind of a goner, mainly because you have both ends, you have restaurants and they have outdoor seating, both on the sidewalk as well as in the parking lane. So those are tighter corners. But on the 7th Avenue side, more often than not, you only have about 3.5 feet gap. And that has been consistently so. In fact, I actually spoke with Detective Sayeta today itself, and he agreed to sort of go take a look at it. But is there something that you could do, Captain Gault, that someone checks this every few days, if not every day, especially after a protest that you guys are expecting, which is I think it's every Thursday or something? It would be really helpful if someone does that.
That's not a tall order at all, and we could certainly do a better job in terms of being mindful of people like yourself on the block, and there's a need for them right now. Unfortunately, hopefully we get to a point in the city and as things move on that we're not seeing the level of need for barriers with the protesters and stuff. But on a day-to-day basis, we could certainly. That's not a tall order, and we can certainly look to do that for you.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Jesse, we've got actually 2 questions from the public now.
Bringing them over now.
Yep. Bjorn Thorstad, sir, you're up. If you can unmute yourself, you can ask Captain Gault a question.
Great, thank you.
How you doing? I actually didn't have a question for Captain Gault, but I was wondering if the community board
Hang on, sorry. I believe it's my turn, but whoever's speaking is welcome to continue, just so long as they don't think it's me.
Oh,
who's
All right.
speaking?
One second, Bjorn, you're first, okay?
Thank you. So thank you, Captain Gault, and thank you, board, for the forum. Captain Gault, for your service. I wanted to draw attention to the practice that the 10th Precinct has of flashing their lights all night long on 17th Street between 9th and 10th Avenues in front of One Oak. I understand the police's presence there. I understand and appreciate that it is deterrent of certain other types of activity that are insidious, but the flashing lights themselves create a strobe effect inside our apartments on that 17th Street side of the Caledonia, and it wakes us up in the middle of the night, or if we haven't gotten to sleep, it keeps us awake. It's a light bleed situation. I know that we've mentioned this before. I know that people have mentioned this to the 10th Precinct before. I was just wondering if there's a policy that you can put in place that will keep that from happening.
Well, so part of that is probably what we do sometimes on that block is safety checkpoints. So if it's a safety checkpoint and the cops are in the street pulling cars into like a shoot or something like that, that's done so that nobody gets hurt in terms of the immediate safety checkpoint, and then to create lights so that there's no confusion. But if it's being done just continually and arbitrarily, that's not what we're looking to do. So lights are used on an as needed basis. So there is safety uses for the lights if we're doing like say a checkpoint or something like that. But just to have the lights on are they on for hours at end or just for like short periods of time?
Sometimes for hours on end, and if there were lights shined for safety, that would be fine as long as they're steady. It's the flashing lights that
Like like the regular turret lights on the top of the car.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah.
It's the spinning turrets, that create a strobe effect in our apartments at night.
Yeah. All right, we could certainly take a look at that. Like I said, I mean, it's on an as-needed basis. We have to be safe, and but if we're not immediately engaged in some sort of an enforcement operation, or there's no particular enforcement need for it, we can have omnipresence without lights flashing into your apartment, certainly.
Much appreciated. Thank you, sir.
You got it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bach, your question.
Sorry about that before. I was wondering, in light of the repeat criminal action that we continue to see throughout the city, if the community board itself is making, pressing on our elected officials, making what's going on locally known to them to see if we can, in fact, change some of the policies that are putting repeat criminals just back on the streets to commit more crime in our community.
But we do, I can answer that one. We don't have a specific committee that deals with policing issues or with public safety issues. We do have a social and racial justice working group that has met with a couple of the police precincts and has worked on those issues. But ultimately, the community board doesn't usually take political positions. That's not our role to get involved in day-to-day politics. If it's a safety issue, absolutely we get involved. And some of the community boards have specific public safety committees that, we've done it in a different way. But in terms of taking a political position on something like bail reform is beyond the scope of what the community board would take on. So I thank you for your question, but it's not something that we actually take on. Who's calling on me? Maria? Go ahead, Maria.
And but later on, we are going to be talking about and voting on a letter about Midtown Community Court, which impacts low-level offenders. So,
right.
Yeah, that'll come up later.
And I've had two people now text me to make a pitch for the local precinct community councils. Each precinct has a community council where there is direct interaction between members of the public and the community affairs officer and other officers at the precinct. We do this where we rotate every month through the precincts that cover Community Board 4 to give the police another forum to engage with the public. But the community council meetings, every precinct does have one, and you can, engage more directly with them on politically biased issues as opposed to what the community board takes on. So thank you, Leslie and Dolores, for that reminder. And I think at this point, we're going to cut this off and thank Captain Gault for his time. We do appreciate you being here, sir, and see you again in a couple of months.
Thank you, and congrats on finishing out your term. Have a great one.
Thank you. All right, our next thing. All right, we're going to go, we have a public hearing. There is a letter in the packet tonight that the board will be discussing relating to Penn Station and the Penn Station general project plan for redevelopment of the area. I want to preface this by saying, of the blocks that are slated for redevelopment as part of the general project plan, only one block, Block 1, is in CB4. The rest of the blocks are in CB5. So our letter is very specifically focused on issues relating to Block 1, either what's going in on Block 1 or how the GPP affects Block 1. So that's what the letter's about, and I'm asking everyone to please keep that in mind. We are going to get a presentation tonight, however, that is going to cover the entire GPP, because this is the standard presentation from the Empire State Development Corp. So you'll see what's going on and you'll see the way things interact, but ESD is not taking questions tonight. This is a public hearing, so if you've signed up to speak, you will get your 2 minutes to weigh in. That's an unofficial weigh-in. ESD is holding their own public hearing on December 8th, where all of those comments, all of the public's comments will be taken in and ultimately addressed and responded to. Tonight is really just for the board's letter, so we can hear what our community is thinking about the subjects that affect CB4. So with that introduction, is Marion here? I saw Holly and Angel, but I don't know if Marion's here yet. Marion Phillips, there he is. He's coming in right now as I mentioned the man's name. Marion Phillips is the Senior Vice President of Community Relations for Empire State Development. And he's going to introduce the ESD team that's here. And once he introduces Holly, Holly's going to present the overview of the entire GPP. We're not taking questions again. Jeffrey will run the public session for people who've signed up. And then any discussion will relate specifically to our letter during our business session. So with that, Marion Phillips, SVP of ESD and world-renowned New York Mets fan. The floor is yours, sir.
First, to your chair, let me just highlight the fact that anyone who loves the Mets as much as I do is a great man or a great woman. Now, I know none of that matters to anybody but Lowell and I, but I do want to say before ESD gets started, congratulations to Lowell on his tenure as chair of Community Board 4. And we are very excited about the fact that we are able to work with someone as passionate and as caring about his community and his community board as Lowell is. We also want to thank Lowell. I want to thank Jeffrey. I want to thank Christine. There you are in the middle of my screen, Christine. And I want to thank, where is he?
I'm here.
Paul,
He's
you normally
the first question, Marion.
Yeah, of course, first question, Paul. Paul has the first question. But I want to thank all four of you on behalf of ESD. The four of them represented you on this community advisory working group, did an incredible job of holding our feet to the fire and occasionally letting our feet off just so that we could breathe. But more importantly, giving input, very clear input, very direct input, but most importantly, constructive input. And so I do want to thank you for all of that. I want to thank you all and look forward to working with your next chair, continuing to work with all of you in any capacity that you have. I think that of all the community boards, and I don't say this lightly because I generally don't need to make this mistake by saying this publicly, but honestly, Community Board 4, you've been a jewel or a charm or very decent folks to work with, and I do appreciate it. Betty and I met you, Betty, on Bayview. So many of you we've worked with as I look at your faces, but thank you very much for your time. Congratulations. I'm going to turn it over to Holly, our Executive Vice President, who'll do a quick presentation. Also on the Zoom with us tonight is Angel, one of our Assistant Vice Presidents. But I just wanted to jump in and say that. I'm going to depart now and go back to your neighbor, Community Board 5, and continue on their call. But I had to jump in and say thank you all. And then also, I guess, congratulations to the next chair. So all the best, everyone.
All right, so Marion didn't actually introduce you, Holly.
No, I did. I said the next person is Holly Light, the Executive Vice President of our Real Estate Department. You know, Lowell, I said I was not going to do this, but now you've made me do it. And to the next chair, Jeffrey, glad to have you.
All right, Holly Light, EVP of Real Estate Development and the voice of this project for many of these public sessions. Angel, you got your slides ready? All right, Jesse, did we give an Angel control? There we go. Holly, the floor is yours.
All right, great. Thank you, Lowell. And let me add my thank you to you for your leadership and congrats to Jeffrey, who we will also really look forward to your leadership as well. Okay, I'm going to jump in. This is a bit of an overview of the whole project because I'm not sure how up to speed everybody who might be watching tonight is. So we're going to sort of combine it with mostly focusing on the revisions. As I think Lowell has mentioned, we worked really closely with a working group that the four members of Community Board 4 were part of, along with a lot of other elected officials, Community Board 5, and other stakeholders and advocates, and got a set of recommendations at the end of the summer that were really quite, I think, robust and on mark. And we have come back with Governor Hochul's blessing with proposed revisions to the original plan. And so a lot of this is going to focus on some of the changes that we think make the plan better. So first slide, please, Angel. So first, just kind of starting with the premise of why we're even looking at this area. I think we can all agree that Penn Station, its expansion and reconstruction is now a necessity. Penn Station was built to serve 300,000 commuters. It was double that in 2019, and the railroad's projections are that by 2038, we will be almost triple what we currently have. Next slide. And once you get to the premise that we need to do something, we talk about how are we going to pay for it. So the railroads are in negotiations about extending the agreement for the Gateway tunnels, which is a 50% federal share and then 25 and 25 by each, the state of New York and the state of New Jersey, to try to extend that to the reconstruction and expansion. Assuming that they are successful in that, which God willing, knock on wood, New York's share would be looking at about $7.5 to $10 billion. I think the recognition is that that is a huge number and it isn't going to just come from budget appropriations. So we were brought in by the MTA to help look at other ways to fill that funding gap. Next. And the final component of sort of looking at this area is that though there may be skepticism in the wake of COVID, we all believe that New York will continue to grow. And this is the heart of New York Central Business District and should be. Sustainable growth is around density at transportation hubs. And this is the biggest transportation hub in the Northern Hemisphere. Next slide. So the four sort of guiding principles of the general project plan that you'll be voting on. First was to develop a comprehensive redevelopment plan to help generate revenue, to help fund both the reconstruction and expansion of Penn Station, but also in the second bullet, an integrated network of transit and public improvements around Penn Station to help support, so the neighborhood can help support this increased capacity. Also catalyzing sustainable transit-oriented mixed-use development that includes housing and fostering long-term economic growth for the city. Next slide. A quick word about general project plans. If you're not familiar with them, this is sort of the state's version of ULURP. All of these projects that you may be familiar with, many of them were done as general project plans. Whenever the state through ESD does a project, we do it as a general project plan, which basically, as this says, lays out the program, uses, density, massing of a project. It has enforceable design guidelines that often replace local zoning, but are can be equally detailed and enforceable as zoning rules. And it has to undergo a SECRA EIS, which is part of this process as well. Next. Okay, so to dig in, this is the project area. The blue sites aren't affected directly by anything in this plan. We're focused on the 8 yellow parcels. And the 3 southern parcels are the sites that are one of the possible locations for the expansion of Penn Station. The railroads are about to launch a federal environmental review process to decide firmly on where the expansion will happen. They're looking at a few different options. So far, this seems from an engineering perspective to be the most likely. However, if that location is not selected through the NEPA process that starts next year, there will not be redevelopment of those 3 sites. So this is contingent on that further process by MTA and the railroads. Next slide. So as I mentioned, Governor Hochul, when she came in, embraced a revised plan that focused primarily on less the expansion and more the current Penn Station, because most New Yorkers use the current Penn Station. That's where Long Island Railroad will go into. Amtrak is generally moved over to Moynihan, and NJT would move into the expansion. So we need to make sure that LARR and New Yorkers get a great station too. And so the idea is not to delay any of the expansion, but to front end, since it's a slightly less complicated review process, front end, starting the reconstruction of a current Penn. And the second piece is to ensure that we're focusing on the neighborhood and giving the community a great neighborhood that supports the projects at Penn itself. Next. So we've had 18 community advisory meetings over the course, the most intensive weekly 2-hour sessions from April through the end of the summer with our working group. And we've had 8 public meetings and town halls. And so from that, we've gotten a set of recommendations that helped shape the revisions that I'm going to talk about next. So these are some of the major highlights of the revisions, and I would encourage everybody to look at our website for a more detailed presentation. But top line, we've reduced the density by 1.4 million square feet, which is the equivalent of a super tall building. We are emphasizing housing more and across 4 sites, up to 1,800 residential units could be built, of which 540 would be permanently affordable. And we're actually requiring that 1 site be residential. That's about 540 units total, 162 of which would be permanently affordable. And that's on site 1A, which is the southwesternmost site. Creating up to 8 acres of public space and creating a public realm task force and public realm fund to fund those public realm improvements and decide what they should be. And that would include community and electeds representation. It's modeled on the East Midtown public realm task force that's been quite successful so far. We would increase public transit access, adding more community space for innovative social services, 50,000 good paying construction jobs, and greener transit-oriented commercial. We're going to now require that all buildings be built to be electric so that when the grid for the city and state go green, which knock on wood is supposed to happen by 2040, all of these will be grid neutral buildings. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to run through some images that show this. This was the original GPP, and you can see that it was all commercial with 2 hotel options. Next slide. And this is the reduced density. And we focused on, first of all, it shows the reduction in density by 7%. And we also focused on reducing the density at the request of the working group, particularly to the south and to the west. As you're getting to more residential areas with the Penn South community, wanted to kind of step down as you go from east to west. So we brought down base heights and total heights entirely on the western side. And as I said, that little red building on the lower left would be a required residential building, and the first floor would be community facility space. All of those sites to the south, again, those are the ones contingent on being selected for the Penn expansion. All of those would be RFP'd. So we can put requirements in an RFP for developers to come in with specific ideas, including what that community facility space would be. Next. This is a residential. So the last one was if it was commercial, if they go with the residential, it's required on that westernmost site. But these are the other 3 sites that also could have residential rather than commercial. And that's up to 1,800 units, as I mentioned. Next. So just looking at the skyline as a whole, for a while, this area has been, it hasn't really had new buildings since the 70s. So it hasn't been filled in the way that the west and the east with the Hudson Yards rezoning and East Midtown rezoning have been. So now you can sort of see originally this is how it would have fit into that Midtown skyline. Next slide. And now we've brought it down. The highest FAR equivalent is 30, which is lower than the highest in either Hudson Yards or East Midtown. And then next slide shows the residential alternative. Next slide. Talked about the 8 acres of open space. One of them would be a 30,000 square foot public plaza on the block 780, which is the southern block where the expansion could be. And this is about the size of Rockefeller Plaza. Next slide. We also are requiring an open space requirement on every site. This was inspired also by the East Midtown rezoning, which we were asked by the working group to look at. This was the original open space for each site. Next slide. Now, all of those amounts have been upped considerably, other than in the 780 block, which, as you can see, already has a high percentage because of the public plaza. We also added an additional potential shared street. So those green streets are all shared streets that we're proposing in coordination with DOT. As you can see, probably the grand dame of this is going to be from 6th Avenue to 9th Avenue. 33rd Street will be shared, or in some areas pedestrianized that whole way. 32nd Street between 6th and 7th also shared, and now we're adding as an additional one for DOT to study 31st Street between 7th and 8th. Shared streets, you can have pickups and drop-offs and some limited 5 miles an hour traffic, but it's generally pedestrianized and traffic is dissuaded. And there's lots of things to keep the traffic slow and add trees and have no curbs, so it's more pedestrianized area. Next slide. So on 31st Street, this is looking westward now. Next slide. And this is what it could look like if you have the wider sidewalks that are part of every single building, which is required to have wider sidewalks than today, plus the shared street. And this enables you to have, more trees and more space for the pedestrians. And you can see that public plaza space there in the middle of the block as well. Next slide. Here's 33rd Street by Moynihan, looking east from Manhattan West. Next slide. And you can see this one. This is something city planning and DOT have wanted to do for a long time. It really, we think, would be game changing for that whole area. Next slide. Oh, and I should say, sorry, I missed the part about parking. We're decreasing the vehicular parking in the area by 68% and increasing bike parking by 87%. So definitely stressing pedestrianization and bicycles over cars here, which when you combine with congestion pricing, hopefully we will see a dramatic decrease in vehicular traffic here. Next slide. Also, one of the things that was brought up by the working group, and this was a priority, particularly for CB5, was preserving some of the iconic views of the Empire State Building. And so since 33rd Street is going to be a focus of the plan, we wanted to prioritize Empire State Building from there. So before, this is what the view would have been if you were coming out of the 8th Avenue ACE subway in front of Moynihan. Next slide. We've put in design controls that are going to require this building, which is Site 6, to set back and not develop part of the site. So now with that chunk out of it, next slide, you get blue sky on both sides of the spire. Next slide. And here's another example. This is mid-block if you're coming out of Moynihan between 8th and 9th. Next slide. Take out that chunk that we no longer will allow. Next slide. And you've got that air and sky. Next slide. And now I'm going to move to the pedestrian and transit improvements. This is kind of currently what the situation is. You all know this well. There's 4 subway stations that are connected into Penn. Next. So what we are proposing to do as part of this to support the increased capacity at Penn, first of all, is a pedestrian underground concourse that would finally enable people to get all the way from Penn under 7th Avenue and all the way east to the Herald Square subways. So there's 2 options we're looking at. This one shows the old Gimbel's Passage that would be improved. There's a second option that might be at 32nd Street that MTA is studying. In the subway stations, we're adding 8 new escalators, 2 new elevators for more accessibility, widening stairways and platforms to make major congestion improvements at subway stations. And then also significantly, we're going to require every building that's built to have an in-building entrance either to Penn itself or to the subways, depending on where the building is. So we'll get 8 new Penn entrances and 10 new subway entrances, and you can see those in dark blue. This is significant because right now, part of the congestion at Penn is because there's just not enough ways to get in and out. This model is more like Grand Central, where you can pop in and out in a lot of different places and prevent sidewalk congestion and pinch points at points of egress. Next slide. So this is an example, as we're talking about this right now, you probably know this entry to the LIRR on 34th and 7th, you can barely find it. It's not even on the corner. Next slide. When that site would get redeveloped, we are requiring that that entry would be double height and would be moved to the corner. So you're really talking about a significant entrance, and every building, all the buildings would require these kinds of entrances. Next slide. Here's another example. This is where the Duane Reade is on 8th Avenue. Next slide. And you would have a significant double height entrance into Penn Station at 8th and 33rd. Next slide. A quick moment on the funding. So we have been asked a lot, how do we know that any of the real estate funding will go to things that we care about? This is a simplified version of it, but any appropriations, there's already been $1.3 billion appropriated for the transportation projects that would go straight to MTA. Any development related revenues, which would be the sale of the additional air rights, and any pilot revenues, we would hold the city, make the city whole for all of its current taxes that it gets. And then we would just add public realm. And then on top of that, anything else would go into a combination of the public realm fund I discussed for those improvements, or to the MTA for both the Penn projects and the transit improvements I just went over. Next slide. And finally, and just here's a quick timeline of where we are. We have our public hearing on these revisions, as well as the draft EIS and draft plan next Wednesday, week from today. We'll have a 30-day public comment period thereafter until January 10th. And then we will go back and take the revisions we've already been working on and anything we want to revise further based on the public comment we get at the hearing and in the comment period, to revise the GPP further and finalize the EIS. We have some additional things we have to study based on these revisions, like the additional shared street on 31st. And so we will be working on that for a few months before we go in the spring back to the ESD board for reconsideration. So I hope I didn't go too much over, Lowell. Thank you again for giving us the opportunity to present tonight.
Thank you, Holly. I think that's the 5th time I've heard you do that presentation.
Sorry about
No, thank you very much for being here tonight. That's an overview of the entire GPP. As I said at the outset, I'm going to repeat it again. ESD is not taking questions tonight, and the only discussion we will be having amongst the board members is in relation to our letter, which is in the packet. Now, however, we do have a public session and people have signed up to speak. They will get their 2 minutes under the watchful eye of Mr. LeFrancois.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everybody. This is not yet our official public session. This is strictly a public hearing on the topic that Lowell and Holly just took us through, and specifically on the letter we'll be voting on this evening. I have 3 speakers signed up to speak on the topic: Eve Kahn, Pamela Wolf, and Eugene Sinigliano. Eugene, I'm sorry, I probably didn't pronounce that correctly, but those are our 3 speakers on this topic. So Eve, if you're with us.
I didn't see Eve. I have Eugene coming over now, and I have Pam coming over.
And Pamela's here already, right?
All right, I'll bring her back over. Eugene should be with us, though.
Hi, Eugene.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Thanks for coming. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I appreciate the fact that CB4 has about 5% of the project area, and I will try to keep my comments definitely related to the area that you have, that's block 1. However, you have to understand that as the way the project is set now, and unless things change according to suggestions in your letter, all the displaced residents, the only promise they have of any type of residential housing, maybe 10 years down the road, would actually be in your block 1. Now, your letter definitely is pushing Empire State Development to consider building affordable housing in other blocks that will come on first. But because residents, unless they make those changes, residents will actually be only allowed to return to your block 1. That kind of makes you responsible for the residents. And in speaking about that, the part of your letter that says that residents will be able to, that Empire State Development has commitment to relocate displaced residents at the same level of affordability is not correct. And I talked to Paul about that earlier. Indeed, that's not the case. All they're promising is affordable housing. They're not saying that you'll have affordable housing at the same level of affordability. So the language needs to be developed and needs to be pushed by CB4 that indeed displaced residents, and especially displaced rent stabilized seniors, will be able to have housing at their same affordability level, which is not what they're offering at this time. And then finally, I think it's very important that the understanding be made that yes, the southern expansion may not happen, but it is their preferred alternative. It is the alternative that they are pushing for. It's the alternative that they've shown the most plans for. And in fact, a lot of the project doesn't work unless they get this alternative. So we need to be sure that we understand that chances are these people will be displaced, and we need to make sure that if they are displaced, they have protection.
Thank you, Eugene. Appreciate those comments. And just so everybody knows, Eugene is also on the Community Advisory Council and Working Group as well. And so we've been working together for quite some time now. Pamela, you're next.
Well, hi. Thank you, Jeffrey. I'm here tonight to read a statement from the Empire State Coalition. It is composed of 13 community and civic organizations. The coalition opposes the Empire Station plan for the Penn area, including the minor variations that the plan recently proposed by Governor Hochul. The plan is unnecessarily destructive of our city's historic fabric and eliminates a functioning, valuable swath of the city. It unnecessarily demolishes people's homes, unnecessarily destroys thousands of small business jobs, and foolishly builds 10 new Class A office towers, an extension of the widely detested Hudson Yards. This bloated development plan is one that benefits only Vornado, the city's largest real estate investment trust. This push for a developer's fiefdom, the so-called Vornado campus, destroys a church, a beloved sky bridge, multiple landmark hotels, and a rare remnant of the original Penn Station. It is a plan filled with displacement and destruction. Moreover, the proposed improvements to Penn Station are minor and do not need to be funded by Vornado skyscrapers. They are lipstick on a pig improvements and could easily be funded through other means. 10 new towers cannot be justified with any reasonable argument. Tossing in a bit of affordable housing does not improve the plan, nor does pedestrianization of a street soon to be in dark shadows. The tragedy is this: better ideas exist and are being ignored. Madison Square Garden could easily be moved by repurposing the billions in funding slated for unnecessary borough jails, and converting Penn Station to allow through running, a solid proposal that would avoid most of the wanton destruction, is an idea whose time is now, not in the future. Last, an above ground station is also an idea that is easily achieved and would better serve the broad public and the attempts to make it palatable through superficial tweaks that fool not a soul. The coalition is made up of, I'll just finish, is made up of 29 of the 29th Street Association, the Historic Districts Council, the City Club of New York, Human Scale NYC, Take Back NYC, Limited Equity at Penn South, Midtown South Community Council, Save Chelsea, the Council of Chelsea Block Associations, the Victorian Society, Rethink NYC, the Congress for New Urbanism, the New York chapter, and the Environmental Simulation Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Appreciate you being here tonight. With that, Mr. Chair, I declare this public hearing closed.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Angel. And thank Marion for us. I know you're all going back to CB5 now, their land use meeting. Have some fun with that. We're going to move on to the next item on our agenda. I'm going to kick this back to Jeffrey for our regular public session. Before I do so, I neglected to mention at the very outset that we are holding this meeting via Zoom in accordance with state law. We usually add that disclaimer up front, and I forgot to. But Jeffrey, now you can go with the regular public session, please.
Absolutely. Thank you again. As is our custom, this is the standard public session where members of the public signed up in advance to speak on any topic of their choosing for 2 minutes. I will provide a 15-second warning, and then we will move to the next speaker when we hit that 2-minute mark. First up, and I have 5 speakers this evening, Bjorn Thorstad, Ivana Cepeda, and Caroline Wood are our first 3 speakers. Jesse.
Bjorn is coming over now.
Great.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to do you the courtesy of turning on my camera in a second too. I realize I have the opportunity to do that. Hi.
2 minutes, all yours.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Thank you, Lowell. Thank you, board, for the opportunity to speak. So I'll spare you most of the backstory and do your intelligences the credit of imagining that you can extrapolate from my request what the last 10 years has been like living across the street from the club One Oak on 17th Street between 9th and 10th Avenues. So I appeared before Community Board 4 10 years ago when Scott Sartiano, one of the Butter Group owners, was also our neighbor here in the Caledonia. And we have had an ongoing dialogue for the last 10 years and a mediation that the board oversaw. And I still have a pretty good relationship with Scott. We're friendly. And just to sort of set the tone right, this is not a complaint against One Oak. This is an issue that of an awareness that I need to raise with Community Board 4 to let them know that this continues, and also a request for oversight and accountability if possible. Ultimately, my ask is for Community Board 4 to commit to withholding a liquor license renewal if One Oak cannot address the soundproofing to the satisfaction of its neighbors. You know, I wish One Oak all the success in the world. I wish, you know, the Butter Group owners, you know, prosperity and abundance. And I need to make them aware that and the community aware that this has been an ongoing problem and it wants resolution.
15 seconds.
Thanks. The major problem is the low frequency thudding that begins. It's the subwoofer bass Tuesday through Sunday when the club is normally open. It hasn't been open for over a year, but it shows signs that it might be. So that was another thing I wanted to find out was like what are the plans for One Oak, and if there are any members from the Butter Group listening tonight, I invite them to reach out to me so that we can have a conversation.
Thanks, Bjorn. Appreciate those comments.
Thank you.
Ivana here, Jesse?
No, I don't believe she is.
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Oh, you are
perfect.
good.
Hi, Ivana. You have 2 minutes. Go right ahead.
Wait. Stop.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to let Bjorn know that we're following up on a separate track with him about his concerns. He had signed up to speak very early on in the month, so we had just saw this. We would obviously have, contacted, but we are just because this is something that we do all the time, working with residents and issues with bar and restaurant stuff. So I just want people to know that, and Bjorn to know we are following up.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse. Sorry about that. Ivana, you now have 2 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm actually new to this neighborhood. I moved here in February from the Bronx. I live in the Hell's Kitchen section, but I work in the Chelsea area. And I know we had the police chief earlier, a member of the precinct, and I listened to what he had to say. And so my question was more related to that, but more specifically in this area. And it was like our local Target and Hell's Kitchen, they've had to change their hours because there's been a lot of like theft. And I even noticed like early in the mornings when I'm going to work and late in the evening, there's more. And I recognize this is a citywide problem, but I just wanted to know, what's being done of just like emotionally disturbed people, like homelessness. So some of them are like really, I don't want to say aggressive, but they just like when they're asking for money now, like they really kind of come up in your personal space. And so I was just curious what other things can be done. There's a Christmas tree stand across the street from where I live. And as I was walking by, like a woman like literally came up to me but in my personal space. And so to his point about you don't know what type of weapons and things people are walking around with, I was just like, not today. And I just kept walking. So I just wanted to raise that. But I recognize that the police portion of this call has already taken place. So that was it.
Thank you, Ivana. We do take up a number of issues as it relates to public safety in our Health, Housing, and Human Services Committee. And also, I think stuff certainly comes out of our ACES committee as well. So if you haven't signed up for our board newsletters already, please do so. So that way you can regularly get our agendas and obviously reach out to the board office if there's any specific issues to be addressed. So thank you for coming tonight and welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Up next, Caroline Wood, followed by Miriam Fisher and Lisa Wager. Caroline?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Thanks so much. I'm just talking about the 22nd Street Open Street. And I just wanted to bend your ear for under 2 minutes to throw not only my support, but so many of my neighbors' support behind Melanie Bryant and all the work she's done to make our block something we could not have imagined before. I first met Melody only about a year ago, and she would talk to me about things like loading zones and permanent signage discouraging through traffic and benches and bike corrals. And I would kind of nod, thinking like, that all sounds great, but I honestly didn't have the imagination to understand how that would change our block. And now that we've lived with our open street, our lovely open street for almost, I don't know, I think it's been a year. I can't imagine it. And so now I want to talk about it and I want to really advocate for it. I'm nobody, I'm just somebody who's lived here for 30 years. My partner and I live in an apartment on 22nd Street, and we've seen the difference that less car traffic makes on our block. And it's superficial things like things being cleaner and friendlier, but things also feel safer. And by friendlier, I don't just mean neighbors stopping to chat. I mean, we have more neighborhood engagement. We care more. We talk to each other more. We're more aware of what happens on our block. And it's because we stop 5-6 times a day to move those gates, and we meet each other, and we actually have a lot of positive interactions with people driving through.
10 seconds.
Thank you so much. That's really it. Just more and more support for our open street.
Thanks, Caroline. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's see. Miriam Fisher, followed by Lisa Wager, and then Melody Bryant.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Miriam, 2 minutes.
Okay, I know. I keep getting bumped off my internet, so I've been having trouble. I did try to raise my hand and speak to the captain. I have not been able to go to any of the police meetings because they're all now in person and not hybrid, which right now is very hard for me. I'm not very mobile. I've been concerned. There was a robbery in my building today, and I live on 21st Street across from PS 11. I'm concerned about the sheds at night after dark. Are there incidents? Have they been barricaded? And I've been trying to get through to him. And ironically, it was especially frustrating because my hand was up, but apparently I wasn't seen. That wasn't what I was originally going to talk about. I was going through some old emails, and at another meeting that I couldn't attend, it was not hybrid, in July, there was a letter to then Governor Cuomo about congestion pricing. And I heard it live stream with support for people with disabilities, transportation. I don't see that in the letter. I sent it to Lowell for easy access. It's dated August 16th. If you could read it, and maybe that could be reconsidered, and an amended letter sent to our new governor from disability groups. And that's one of the issues that they've been concerned about surcharges for people with disabilities. In terms of congestion pricing, it's in the law that there'll be exemptions. And I think Community Board 4 was supporting that. I heard it live stream, but I don't see it in the letter. And
thanks, Miriam.
thank you for listening.
All right, Jeffrey, before you move on, just Miriam, Captain Gault's already emailed you back.
Okay, I didn't look at
Yeah.
my
Okay, he's already emailed you
phone
back.
yet. I will, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Miriam. Okay, next up, Lisa Wager, followed by Melody Bryant. Lisa?
Hey, my name is Lisa Wager. I'm the Director of Government Community Relations at the Fashion Institute of Technology, the SUNY College, on 27th between 7th and 8th. And we have a residence hall on 31st between 9th and Dyer in the district. Just here to say some fun things that have happened at FIT in the last month. So for the 20th year, an FIT faculty member, Barbara Berman, was the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade Costume Chief, leading the parade's costume crew and assembling and dressing 600 clowns, 300 float escorts, 160 teens, 75 stilt walkers, 2,000 balloon handlers, 450 officials, 100 banner carriers, and other lucky participants. When she's not preparing the handlers of a giant inflatable Snoopy, Professor Berman teaches in FIT's Center for Continuing and Professional Studies in the Fashion Styling Certificate Program, and also in the Fashion Events Planning and Publicity Program, where she serves as the lead teacher. And each year she recruits part of the parade crew from her PR and special events class. It's a great opportunity for students to get a taste of the real world behind the scenes work, and of course, to make their childhood dreams come true. I also wanted to just mention a first in the fragrance world. Virginia Bonifiglio, who's Associate Chair and Assistant Professor in the Undergraduate Cosmetics and Fragrance Marketing Program, was inducted into the Fragrance Foundation's Circle of Champions. The foundation is a nonprofit devoted to expertise, innovation, and education in the fragrance industry, and her induction into the circle marked the first time that an educator was given this honor. And along with the induction, the foundation announced a Fragrance Foundation FIT Diversity Scholarship, a $100,000 academic award that will benefit undergraduate and graduate students of diverse backgrounds in the cosmetics and fragrance marketing program who are interested in pursuing a career in fragrance. And finally, I just want to mention that the astonishing work of our associate degree students in the fashion design program, so that's 2 years of academic education in fashion design, is up in the lobby of the Pomerantz building. That's the building on the north corner of 27th and 7th Avenue. The work is astonishing. You can walk by and see it, or you can go into the lobby. You don't have to, it's not officially entering the college. You can just wander in. It's pretty impressive. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. And finally, Melody Bryant, please. Melody? Let's see. You're on mute.
Okay, I'm audible.
There you go.
Hi.
All yours.
Thank you for taking my testimony today. I would like to speak in favor of the open street improvements on our West 22nd open street outlined in the Transportation Committee draft letter. We've been operating West 22nd as an open street since May of 2020, and I can say from personal experience that our street is extremely popular with residents and with the neighborhood at large. In fact, according to a survey I conducted last year, 91% of respondents approved of our open street and a full 73% wanted more greenery. So in response to that interest, we received 4 beautiful planters last month. These not only set a lovely tone for our street, but have helped calm traffic, which 50% of respondents also said they wanted. So the signage proposed, traffic light changes, a neck down, a bike corral would further help calm traffic on our block, and seating is greatly needed here. Since we've had our open street, I've met people who moved to this block because of it. A super who grew up here and said the sense of community that is growing here reminded him of his youth. And there have been countless positive responses to our planters, which we will soon be decorating with holiday lights. So I urge the board to vote in favor of the street improvements outlined in the Transportation Committee draft letter, and hope we can become a model for others in Chelsea who would like to do the same for their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. And well under time. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Chair, with that, I declare this public session closed.
Okay, very quickly then, we need to adopt the agenda. Does anyone have questions on the agenda? All right, I'll take a motion.
Move to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted. The minutes from last month, if there are any questions or comments on the minutes? I'll
move to
entertain a
adopt.
motion. Is there a second?
Motion to adopt. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are adopted. I have been asked, we are now going to move to our public officials. I have been asked to start off tonight with State Senator Brad Hoylman, who I understand is on a train up to Albany. Senator Hoylman, are you with us?
It's good to see you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I am here with the awesome responsibility of presenting a proclamation from our colleagues in government to you, Lowell Kern, for your amazing service. And there we are presenting it, not virtually, but actually, just minutes ago. But then we had to jump off of the Zoom to present it to you virtually. So I'm going to read the proclamation, Lowell. I know I can see you blushing through the screen of my iPad. And again, all of our colleagues in government collaborated on this. I had the honor and good fortune of actually presenting it to you physically. I think it also is because the state Senate is the only body that will allow other elected officials to co-join proclamations. Whereas Lowell Kern has completed a successful term as chair of Manhattan Community Board 4, having worked his way up through the ranks of CB4 as co-secretary, second vice chair, and first vice chair. And whereas his term as chair coincided with the COVID-19 global pandemic, Lowell led the board through challenges unique from any prior chair, overseeing the transition of in-person community board meetings from remote meetings, a first for the community boards in the entire city. And whereas Lowell is to be commended for retaining the board's stability during the pandemic, characterized by positive but stern style with occasional moments of elevated vocalizations. And whereas, like a good board chair and lawyer, and I can identify with this, Lowell remained loyal to his client, defending the board even when disagreeing with its position, often bringing his legal expertise into the hot world of local community board negotiations. And whereas during his term, parks were improved, affordable housing was created, and significant pedestrian safety measures were installed. The Port Authority bus terminal, the Penn Station area project, and Elliott, Chelsea, and Fulton public housing all occurred while Lowell was chair, placing him in the lead of a true cornucopia of working groups. And whereas Lowell initiated the creation of the Social Justice Working Group in Community Board 4, and whereas Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer recognized Lowell's stewardship in protecting our waterfront as a chair of the Hudson River Park Advisory Council, Kern, he a deadhead, yet he has attended more Community Board 4 meetings than he has Grateful Dead concerts. Think about that, which is a lot, given that in 2021 alone, he attended 4 Dead concerts. And whereas as a resident in the heart of the West Chelsea Gallery District, Lowell brought panache and color to the Zoom Square with displays of pop art. And whereas Lowell raised 2 sons in Chelsea who have grown to be contributors to the well-being of our community and was a champion for our public schools and youth sports as PTA president, PS11, and manager of the Greenwich Village Little League. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we recognize that in Lowell Kern, we have an individual worthy of our highest respect and esteem, and be it further proclaimed that we, State Senator Brad Hoylman, Assembly Members Richard N. Gottfried and Linda B. Rosenthal, Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, City Council Speaker Corey Johnson, and City Council Member Helen Rosenthal declare today, Wednesday, December 1st, to be Lowell Kern Appreciation Day in New York State's 27th Senate District, New York State's 67th and 75th Assembly Districts, the Borough of Manhattan, and New York City's 3rd Council District. The crowd goes wild.
Thank you, Brad.
Woo! Woo! Bravo.
That was even,
You know, Lowell,
Excellent.
that was more than I expected.
Lowell, it's like Lowell,
Yeah,
Lowell, it's kind of like having a preview of your obituary.
I really don't want to think about it that way. We got time for that. and not to
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Not to quibble, Senator, but it's 8 shows in 2021, not 4.
Oh,
there are
That was my error.
there are a ton of people excuse me, a little choked up, believe it or not. There's a ton of people I have to recognize here, and since I'm the chair, there's nobody to play me off right now, so you're going to all listen to me for a couple of minutes. First, every member of Community Board 4, from the time I was first appointed 8 years ago to the current board, and no, I'm not going to name them all. Thank you. You are the people who make this city a better place to live. To the chairs of the CB4's committees, these are the people who are essential to getting things done for Hell's Kitchen in Chelsea. The longer you're on the board, the more you realize how hard the committee chairs work. To the extent my term as chair was a success, it's due to the chairs of the various committees that made it that way. Bert and Frank, Betty and Paul, Kit and Alan, Jeffrey and Marty, Christine and Dale, Maria and Joe, and JD, and executive board members Jessica, Mike, and Leslie. The West Side is blessed with a group of talented and caring elected officials, a bunch of whom are with us tonight. Senator Hoylman, Dick Godfrey, Jerry Nadler, Linda Rosenthal, Helen Rosenthal, RJ, Robert Jackson, Corey Johnson, and especially our borough president, the Mother Superior, Gail Brewer. They have dedicated their lives to our communities. And even if we don't always agree, they all deserve our eternal gratitude. Because we have such great electeds, they have great staffs, all of whom have been a pleasure to work with. Thank you to, among others, Wendy Pastor, Matt Ty, Jacob Priley, Maya Burlow, Raja Mann, Matt Green, Carl Wilson, Rosie Mendez, Lizette Shaparo, Brian Lewis, Erica Overton, Johanna Garcia, and last but certainly not least, Robert Atterbury, for all you have done and continue to do. And a special shout out to our council member to be, Eric Botcher. As many of you know, and as proclamation stated, I was previously co-chair of the Waterfront Parks and Environment Committee, and I'm now a member of the board of directors of the Hudson River Park Trust. I love the park, and I value the relationship that CB4 has with the trust and its leadership. I don't have a category to put the president of the trust in, but that's because she deserves a category of her own. Thank you to Noreen Doyle for all her work with CB4 and everything she and her staff do to make Hudson River Park an amazing place for everyone. I have to single out a couple of members of the board who just make my job easier because they're always there for me when I need them. Bert Lazarin was the chair immediately before me and showed me how to do this job. John Danielle Nolan, Paul Devlin, Leslie Murphy are always there whenever I call. 2 other folks have taught me more about how our city should run than anyone, and I am forever in the debt of Christine Berthet and Joe Restuccia. I've loved being the bad cop to Joe's good cop routine, if you can imagine that. My successor in this role, my teammate through all of this, is a matter consider a dear, dear friend. I also wish I had the courage to wear his wardrobe. Thank you, Jeffrey LeFrancois. Working as board chair, you interact with other community boards in Manhattan, and that work has convinced me of one thing. CB4 has the absolute best district manager in the city of New York. Nobody can possibly understand that everything that Jesse Bodine does. Thank you, Jesse, for helping me, for setting me up for success and for keeping me out of trouble, and for having a great staff in Nelly Gonzalez and Janine Pretente. They make everything run. Finally, on a personal note, thank you to Cindy for giving me the time and space to do what I really enjoy. You put up with me interrupting dinners to discuss legislation with Brad, spent car rides listening to me discuss strategy with Jesse, I never got real jealous of my relationship with Jeffrey. I'm going to pass on one piece of advice, not only to Jeffrey, but to everyone. The most important thing you can do in a leadership role is to be able to laugh at the bureaucracy, which is the city of New York, with its alphabet soup of agencies, which Carl Wilson can list in song, which under the current mayoral administration, they never seem to talk to each other. At the absurdity and incompetence at the highest level of government that contributed to the health crisis we find ourselves in, which made almost my entire term as chair a virtual one. But most of all, you have to be able to laugh at yourself. Even if we try our best, we screw up and we make mistakes from time to time. Laughing at yourself keeps you from getting too down on yourself when you screw up, but it also keeps you humble when you think you've got it all figured out. It's been an honor to chair this board and serve the communities of Chelsea, Hudson Yards, and Hell's Kitchen, and I look forward to doing so. Thank you all.
Bravo.
Thank you all. Now, I'm going to keep a promise I made the other night. When we call on the elected officials, I usually go in order of rank in terms of government offices, which means that I usually do the state assembly last. And I've always called on Linda Rosenthal last for some reason. And I promised her the other night that she wouldn't be. So Assemblymember Rosenthal, I'm doing my best to keep my promise to you. You're up first.
Hey, thank you so much, Lowell. I have an important question. Where are you going after, you retire as board chair? The right answer is Disneyland.
I am, only if I win the MVP award, right? In honor of what Brad said, I'm going to Mexico to see a Dead and Company.
Oh, I've seen the Dead back in the day. We should compare notes.
We'll
but
compare
really,
notes.
really, truly, thank you for your extraordinary service as a board chair. You had the monumental task of steering the ship during one of the most tumultuous times in this country, in the world, and in the city, and in CB4 area. And you did so with courage and conviction and dedication. And I just want to compliment you and thank you on behalf of my part of Hell's Kitchen for everything you've done.
Thank you.
But you're not going anywhere. You're just not going to be the chair.
No, believe me, if there weren't term limits, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Exactly. But I think a friend of mine named Jeffrey LeFrancois would have been waiting on deck longer. So I'm happy that he's going to take the seat, and I look forward to continuing to work with you and collaborating with you. And I know we're going to hear a lot more anti-car rhetoric starting in January. And we appreciate you and all of your service. So thank you guys so much. In other news, I'm happy to report I did a walkthrough of West 42nd and 11th Avenue with CB4's Transportation Committee stalwart, Ms. Berthet, and DOT. And we went to discuss traffic concerns in that area. We had the Manhattan Borough Commissioner and various other DOT staff there. You all know the intersection's a mess. Trucks and cars were in the bike lane. Vehicles were blocking the box, cutting off traffic, forcing pedestrians to walk in between cars. Christine Berthet and we all came up with some solutions. I wrote to DOT this week memorializing some of those suggestions, and hopefully they will act on the ideas. In older transportation news, West 57th and 8th intersection finally was redesigned. And, I've been working with CB4 on this for years and years to change the flow of traffic in that area. 57th and 8th used to be one of the most dangerous intersections, and DOT finally implemented our proposals right before the start of the pandemic. We never got to celebrate, so we will be celebrating at some point in December. So I hope to see CB4 there. On a different note, I had, scaffolding is a scourge for all of us. But in one particular case in my district, A building had an open facade violation for close to 5 years. The tenants were reporting that the landlord failed to make repairs. I wrote to DOT, I requested an inspection, a plan of action to compel the landlord to resolve this complaint. It turns out that because we got DOB to go out there, an emergency work order is placed now on the building because of the lack of action. The building might fall down. So the tenants got a vacate. It's been happening for 5 years. Slowly, the building is on the edge of falling. Luckily, that won't happen, but a lot of the tenants will be moving out for a year while this is fixed. Now, I suspect this is the case in numerous situations where it's not just the scaffolding is an eyesore. The scaffolding was put there for a major violation, which was never cured. The money probably was never collected on the fine, and the building continued to deteriorate, putting in danger the tenants, pedestrians, anyone within, a certain feet of them. So this is something I'm now getting an audit from DOB on scaffolding on the west side and in many other places. So I will report to you as soon as I hear that. But, it's not just an eyesore and it's not just dangerous. It is, for in the dark, it is dangerous for these buildings and the tenants who live in them. I know this is not in CB4's area, but it was a major victory to get DOT to finally remove the Donald Trump sign on the West Side Highway at 79th Street. I'd actually pestered the commissioner for months to get rid of it. And he agreed that he wanted to. Eventually it did happen. And you don't know how many people were happy about this. Like, so many people thanked me and thanked others who were involved. So it's kind of crazy, but it's the small things. On the mail, I know a lot of you have concerns. I wrote to the new chair of the USPS Board of Governors advocating for them to remove Postmaster DeJoy, something that President Biden nominated a new chair and another member of the board. So hopefully he will be replaced soon with someone who actually cares about delivering the mail. But continue to call me if your building doesn't get anything. Legislatively, my bill that Brad was the Senate sponsor of, banning the sale and possession of ghost guns, was signed into law this month. And Brad just took a sip of something to celebrate that. I think it was just water. But anyway, it's gun violence is proliferating. We just saw tragically 4 kids die from the gun incident in the school just yesterday. And so we have some more bills that we will be pursuing next session to try to limit gun violence in our state. Despite our strong laws, there's still many places where we need more protection. A couple other things. I've had a bill for 13 years that was finally signed into law, and I'm very proud. It is an employer privacy law. So when you start a new job from now on, the company will be required to let you know that the computers and other machines, other internet-enabled products are their property, not yours, and that they can monitor what you do. This is especially resonant during COVID when everybody was on Zoom and everyone got to see your apartment, but employers got to see when you were sitting in front of your computer and when you were making keystrokes. And if you Googled something you shouldn't have been Googling while on the job. So this will protect employees. It will protect employers who it'll create a level playing field. And I have some more legislation on that. My other bill is we got some constituents who could not get copies of their telephone, cable, or utility companies, which they needed as proof that they were legal residents of the apartment for various other reasons. And some of these utilities told this one constituent that he would have to pay for all of the bills to prove that he actually lived there. That was way over $100. So I passed a law that said they have to provide them for free. For poor people, this is not, it is not something they can afford, nor should they. It's bills. And then now the companies will have to provide them for free. December 8th is Mammo Van Day in front of my office. I think we're pretty full up, but if you know a person or two who might need to be squeezed in, call my office. And I'm also having a Rat Academy December 20th with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And if you want to RSVP, let me know. We're going to have experts tell you how to deal with the explosion of rats, or better yet, how you can work with the Department of Health and Sanitation to prevent them from accessing our waste, our food. And Lowell, I'm going to miss you calling on me, especially when you call on me first. But I so appreciate all of your work, and everyone else is here too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. I'm going to go alphabetically tonight in reverse alphabetical order. So we go from Linda Rosenthal to Council Member Helen Rosenthal.
Thank you so much, Lowell, and congratulations again on having a wonderful tenure. This is my last CB4 meeting as your City Council representative of about 4 or 5 blocks of your district. And I really just quickly want to make 2 points. One is thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to serve you. Specifically to several of the CB4 folks on the Zoom, I want to thank you for educating me about the issues that are important to your district, most often having to do with land use. And NYCHA, I have learned so much from you. Thank you. Secondly, I really appreciate everyone having shared their thoughts on 2 positions that I've taken that are, I guess, shouldn't be, but were somewhat controversial. I supported the desegregation plan in the rezoning a little bit north of your district, where we were able to desegregate 3 schools, and supporting the homeless staying at the Lucerne as they needed to do. I appreciate that. Whether your comments were in support of the positions I took or not, I really appreciate everyone having reached out. Bragging for a quick second, in 2019, I was identified as the #1 legislator by city and state. I've passed lots of bills. We've helped lots of people. You can learn about all of that on my website, helenrosenthal.com. And despite the bragging, I am truly humbled for having this opportunity to be your council member for the past 8 years. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. I share your feelings. It's the end for some of us of what we're doing now. But it's been great working with you. Brad, you're still with us. Did you want to go a regular report as well? Because I see you're still sitting there and you got nothing else to do on the train.
No, I'm just listening.
Okay.
I share.
Okay, that's fine. Just wanted to give you the opportunity. Our borough president was on before.
Everyone's sentiment. Thank you.
Yep. Our borough president was on before. I think she probably ran off to another 6 meetings in the meantime. Brian, do you want to give a report, or should we wait for Gail to pop back in? Or
she intended to be here to give the report herself. I'm trying to figure out where she is. Is it all right if we return to that maybe?
Sure, we can go back to Gail.
We have Philip Ellison from Public Advocate Jamani Williams' office, I believe, is still with us. So he's lined up.
Philip, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm primarily just taking notes, and congratulations on your tenure, but I'm taking notes, bringing information back.
Okay. Well, thank you for being with us tonight. Let's move on then. We'll pop Gail in whenever she gets here. I don't see any other of the electeds on right now. So let's go to the district manager's report. Jesse.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jesse Bodine, District Manager of Community Board 4. I'll be very brief because I think we have a very more important things to go on to talk about. One thing I'd see Jordan Ferrier from Corey's office raised his hand, so I'm going to bring him over and I let him talk after me, I think, if that's all right.
Yeah, we can let Jordan in next.
Yeah, I do see a note. I do see a hand raised from the public, Liz Keefe. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I think you raised your hand at the public session had ended. I don't know if that's what you're looking to do and speak on. Feel free to contact me at my office and we can follow up with whatever the topic may be. What was I going to say? Oh, so really quickly, the only thing I'm going to mention in the report is that the December committee schedule. Just a reminder that Arts, Culture, Education, Street Life Committee is meeting on the Monday the 13th, and Business License Permits Committee is meeting on Tuesday the 14th. That's their normal times, but the way the month falls, I know a lot of people think it's going to meet the following week of full board, and it's not. So there's just a little space there. And then before I get to the election, the board election stuff, no, I guess I'll just go into that. Sorry, I'm a little. Sorry. So yes, so let's have our board election. I apologize. So all of you should have received the link to the ballot. Is that accurate? Does everybody have that? All right. So you can open that up. This is for executive officers for the 2022 term. You should have board chairs, Jeffrey LeFrancois, first vice chair, Jessica Chait, second vice chair, Leslie Bozigan Murphy, co-secretaries Katie Stokes and Blake Russo. So you can begin filling that out now. Please fill it out completely and then make sure you submit it. That is the important key part there at the end, is that whole last button of submission. So if I'm going to give a minute or two for people to do that, and then at the end we will at the end of what we normally do is at the end of our board business, we will report out our the results.
Jesse, at what point did you send those out?
I sent them out at 4 and then I sent them out at 6.
Thank you. All right, while everyone's voting, let's go back to Jordan Feiner. I'll give him a little bit of an introduction. Jordan is the new CB4 rep from Council Speaker Corey Johnson's office, and he's going to continue as the Board 4 rep once Eric takes over in January. So Jordan, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Hello, everyone. It's very funny because yesterday I was on a meeting where I was supposed to introduce myself and they skipped over me at that meeting too. So I'm beginning to think no one wants to hear from me, which is fine. I
did it intentionally, buddy. I did it intentionally.
Okay, good. I expected nothing less. But yes, hello, everyone. Oh, wow. Hello, everyone. My name's Jordan Feiner. I am the new liaison to Community Board 4 in the office of New York City Council Speaker Corey Johnson. And then as Lowell mentioned, I will continue on in the office of Council Member Eric Botcher. Some of you may recognize me as I've been with the office of City Council Speaker Corey Johnson for a while now, actually since 2018. Working special events and projects. And even before then, I was an intern in the office back in the completely different world of summer 2016, if anyone can remember that far back. I've only got 2 very quick updates for you all from our office. Our office is kicking off our 4th annual holiday season toy drive tomorrow. We do that with Holy Apostles. So if you want to come see me in person and not on a screen, you can also come see the bad haircut that I got over Thanksgiving break. You can stop by our office at 224 West 30th Street, Suite 1206, and that's between noon and 5. And then we're also going to be having another drop-off day at our office next Thursday on December 9. And we're accepting donations of toys, unwrapped, unused toys between the ages of 3 months and 17 years old. Secondly, we're going to be doing a holiday season meal distribution on December 23rd at both the Fulton Community Center and the Hudson Guild Elliott Center with the Migrant Kitchen and Hudson Guild. So we're very excited about this. And so I'll keep it short and sweet. Those are my brief updates, but I do want to say, while I can't sing the city agencies like Carl Wilson, nor would you really want me to, just based on how my singing voice is, I do hope to be a sliver as good as he was, and also as Brittany was, and I look forward to working with you all. And also happy Lowell Kern Appreciation Day. Thank you for all your tireless work for CB4. And also, more importantly to you, happy Mets officially signing Max Scherzer Day.
Thank you. We could keep it going all week. Although Stroman just signed with the Cubs.
I did see that as well. So, well, you only have 3 all-star pitchers. So I think they'll be fine.
Okay.
Can I ask a question of Jordan?
Sure, Dale.
Hey, Jordan, I just wanted to know if you had any kind of update on those nefarious tree pit fillers on West 35th Street.
Yes, I don't have a direct update on that yet. I've checked back in with the Parks Department to see what else in terms of restitution or anything like that can be done for them filling them in, but I don't have a direct update for you. I'll check back in tomorrow, and when I know anything, I'll let you know. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. We'll go to the chair report now. I've said more tonight than I usually do. Working groups, because we've got a bunch of them. The Penn Station area working group is still ongoing. The Port Authority bus terminal working group is still ongoing. Port Authority is in the EIS process, and they're holding our working group is holding one-on-one meetings with Port Authority regularly. Clinton Hell's Kitchen land use, we're continuing to work with HPD regarding the 2 public sites in Hell's Kitchen. Apologies, the one letter on that coming up tonight was late, and you can't necessarily blame Joe for that one. We had a meeting this afternoon with HPD that advised some of that letter. The Chelsea Land Use Committee is continuing to monitor the status of the landmark buildings at 14th and 9th and the demolition that was ongoing there. Housing, Health, and Human Services continues to work with the Department of Homeless Services regarding the placement of facilities within our district, so they don't all end up in 1 2-block radius. The Waterfront Parks and Environment Committee attended a tour of the renovated Pier 57, which will open next spring, and has been meeting with EDC and Vornado about Pier 94. There's actually a plan in the works to do something new there. A couple other things I got to do here. First, I want to offer the board's condolences to Elzora Cleveland and her family on the passing of her husband, Miles. The next person who's going to speak, Mike Noble is going to give us an update on the Chelsea NYCHA working group. But as we're doing a lot of last meetings tonight is Mike's last meeting as co-secretary. And he really, innovated the position and made it something much better than it was when Yoni and I did it way back when. So thank you for your service, Mike, but let's hear about Chelsea NYCHA. You're on mute, sir.
Sorry, I was just getting over to my script. As you know, the working group started back in 2019. All right, and we had members of CB4 involved in that. Joe Restucia, Betty McIntosh, and Elzora, and then we had Hector Vasquez. So what happened was the working group published its report back in February of this year, right? And following that, NYCHA established a resident review committee which helped draft and request for proposals. We reviewed developer proposals and we interviewed candidates, and 3 candidates were presented to us. These are massive volumes of information beyond what anyone ever imagined when we started. So we ended up picking one of those 3, and that was announced yesterday, first to some of the select members of the working group, and then later in the day to the tenants of both Fulton and Elliott houses at the tenants meetings that were held in the evening. So the group that we chose was, Essence Development, which is a minority-owned enterprise, okay, and Related Companies, and everybody knows who Related is. And I've got to tell you that the selection was unanimous. Everyone on the board, the committee, there's 10 of us. 10 of us agreed, and so did NYCHA, that they were absolutely the best. They were standouts. And we're very comfortable knowing that they're going to do the best for us. We've got all sorts of things, in the works. So I'm happy to say that it all worked out fine. I am thrilled to have been a part of this. Joe did a wonderful job. Betty did a great job. Everybody did a great job. And we look forward to working with these folks in the future. And, the actual renovations and all won't happen for another 12 or 18 months. In the meantime, we're going to be, doing other things, just getting geared up for that, getting geared up for when they do, in fact, take over. So that's basically what it is. We came to the end of it all. So that there's another conclusion there, So I have lost not only my position on the board, but a lot of time having been spent on the working group and our residents review committee. Very worthwhile. I want to remind people seem to forget this. What we did, we hope to be a model for the rest of NYCHA and maybe other public housing groups around. If you look at the number of lives that are impacted by what happens at NYCHA, right? I looked at the census. The population of NYCHA legally, right? Those who are recognized tenants, 400,000 people. This would rank in the census at number 50, 50th largest city in the country. So when NYCHA does something that affects the lives of people, it is as if the mayor of a large city had done so, right? It's the same thing. And you've got bureaucrats doing this. You got people dispersed around these projects. We're making decisions that so much involve the lives of these people. This is all a lot of these folks have. Their homes, right? Their homes. And I'm just happy to know that we're going to move this over to this. I hope this is the shedding of the skin of the NYCHA snake, which will give rise to, a more representative kind of landlord for the kinds of residents we have in the city, private residences. Give them the same kind of treatment that private folks get.
Mike, you got a bunch of hands up. I'm not sure if it's just congratulations for doing such a great job, which come from me and everyone, but Christine, Joe, and Bert in that order, please.
Well, before I end there, let me just give a special thank you. Joe, we had subcommittees on the working group. Joe was the guy who did the nuts and bolts, the tough stuff with the finance, right? Robert Atterbury, who I think is still with us, he did some of the greatest engagement stuff that anyone could have done. He was super involved. It is as if he lived in the projects, Robert. So I very much appreciate him. And Betty, of course, was always there with questions and note-taking. And she's the mother superior of the working group, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, go ahead, Christine.
Yes, Mike, this is really very impressive, and the work that you all have done is extraordinary, as well as the idea of the impact, how much impact on how many people you're going to have. This is really very moving. I was under the impression that one of the requirements of the RFP was that you continue to supervise the working of the company that has been selected, and that there would be regular meetings where the residents would be involved. Is that still true?
That is absolutely true. And one of the things about picking Related was that they had this engagement process, set forth that made it clear that there would be at least monthly meetings or quarter, but it depends. But of all of them who proposed to us, they had the best engagement, I think, of all of them. And the fellow at Essence, by the way, is somebody who impressed us all. And he had the most compassion, the most understanding of the people living in these buildings. And he really sold it. He was a salesman. The guy's a superstar in that respect. And we believe him. We're putting our faith in him.
So I'm reassured that you are going to be busy again pretty soon.
Oh yeah. I was reassured of that myself last night. I was getting depressed, and I was told, no, don't get depressed. It ain't over yet.
Yeah,
So,
this is now taking it over is going to be important. Thank you, Mike.
Right. When I was growing up, my uncle ran the housing authority in a big city, in the biggest city in Connecticut.
Wow.
And I watched him do this, and I take my lessons from him on how you deal with people. When he died, the people were lined up for blocks and blocks and blocks at his funeral. Okay, he was beloved by the people who lived there. And I look at it today and I say, Jesus, if Greg Russ is a nice guy, but I don't see anybody lining up around the block at his funeral. So anyway.
Joe, you're up next.
Yeah, just a few comments. First, I want to thank Mike, Darlene, Miguel, Lenny, and Hector from the NYCHA tenants, because they carry this from February through the fall. And it is the first time ever in NYCHA that NYCHA tenants were an actual formal part of the selection process for a developer. But even more important, the work that they did, that change is now embodied citywide in how NYCHA will do selection for developers for this RAD conversion. And again, as always, on the west side, we push something to happen, and then it gets spread out citywide. So congrats to them on that. On the tenant rights front for NYCHA, every single item that was included in the report, the exception of one about the rent cap, is included in the RFP. So all the rights that we asked to be included have been accepted. Next part is, remember, from on the finance side, we did better. We had a lot of buildings planned. The related companies put in a proposal that we were very conservative in our financial projections. They will be able to get higher Section 8 rents, which means there will only be one infill building built on the campus. After all that back and forth we went through to make it work. And that will be at the site of the current Hudson Guild. So another piece of news here is we requested, and we are getting a brand new Hudson Guild facility on West 26th Street, 100% new, built at the end as part of the new building. That one new building will be 50% affordable at the income bands we requested, low, moderate, middle, and it will be 50% market. The last
that was a major consideration, Joe. That was a major consideration, major. Instead of having 5 buildings spread out amongst the 2 developments, we've got one, and it fulfills the financial needs, of the projects, right? And as Robert pointed out yesterday, Related has the most. It's able to gather the most Section 8 payments of all these folks around.
The highest Section 8 rent levels in the nation are paid to Related at Manhattan Plaza on West 42nd Street. So we're going to replicate that here, which means a lot less development has to happen.
Exactly. That is key. And they know how to do it, you see?
But I want to caution everybody, the board, I cautioned the tenants yesterday, that there's a designation now to execution 18 months from now. we have to make sure that each and every item that has been agreed to makes it into the final documents and the final plans. And the board and the rest of the public is going to be there to protect the tenants and work with them to make sure that what gets written, what gets promised, gets written. So that's our next goal over the next 18 months.
Yeah, 10-4.
Yeah. Thank you. Bert?
I just wanted to, I want to say, compared to when we started, they talked about demolition of public housing. And where we are now, it's a major, major achievement. The process is an achievement, and the results of the process are an achievement. Unique. Unfortunately, until this point in time, unique. Now, the process doesn't end here, exactly what Joe just said. The process has to continue to hold everybody to their agreement. And there's something, though, we say, oh, now it's a model. Everybody in the housing authority, any redevelopment, that they're going to use this model. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. And I don't know how this is done, but what you have achieved, the tenants, the community board 4 people, everyone who was on that committee, the results have to be communicated to the wider universe. The process that reached those results have to be communicated to the wider universe in New York City and outside. So people know, oh, this is the way it can be done. It's very, very important.
Bert, let me stop you for 1 second and tell you.
Tell me, I'm finished.
We may not be the model for the PACT program around the city. However, one of the things we did do was we created a 30-question a questionnaire for RFP proposers, you see, and it was unique. It went far beyond what NYCHA had used in all of its other PACT RFPs. It's been adopted by NYCHA, so henceforth,
citywide.
That is a major accomplishment because it is coming from the hearts of the tenants, and it's sort of like smacked all these people. Oh my God, we've been asking silly technical questions that made no difference to anybody. These are technical questions that are backroom things that can be answered. Yeah. These are questions that relate to the very people who are most concerned. All right, that alone is an accomplishment. Yeah,
gentlemen, thank you very much. Mike, thank you both for your work on the work group and the tenants, the residents group, and your work as co-secretary. I'm cutting you off because we are joined by the Mother Superior. In her last appearance as Borough President, she'll be back next month as the rep from Council District 6. Ladies and gentlemen, Gail Brewer. Gail, you're on mute.
Thank you very much. I'm in the car, so I got to wear a mask. But I want to say thank you very much, Lowell. That is, I think, a little play that some members of Community Board 4 are very good at writing. And Joe Restici and I had a little thing going in that play. That was hysterical. So that was quite a night. I never was in a nun's uniform until. So, but it's very special. The whole board is very special. Thank you for your leadership. And I have to say, so much good. I can give you other boards which are very challenging right now on every level. But Board 4, not only did today's press conference show the strength of a process that Board 4 played the major role in. Certainly Corey Johnson got it started, Eric Botcher helped, and the mayor's office helped. But it was, amazing committee meetings that led to this NYCHA decision of involvement and a really good process and a good outcome. And I have to say 2 things. First of all, yes, it's citywide, but more importantly, Manhattanville in Board 9 is coming up. So I said to the chair tonight, you have to do exactly what Board 4 has done. And actually, it's interesting. Board NYCHA said to me, oh, we're going to be calling Board 9. We don't have to, but we want to do a similar process. I said, well, yes, just make sure that it includes legal aid, tenants, etc. So it's happening. And at the same time, you should just know that I have to say, irritation is kind of like a nice word for what's been happening at Wise Towers on 90th Street, because no process. And I complained mightily to NYCHA. It's a big rad. In order to use the toilet, everybody's had to purchase a stepping ladder because they made the toilet seats too tall. They made the cabinets too tall. You can't get in the bathroom with a wheelchair. And I could go on and on and on because there was absolutely no input. They don't even put the garbage out right, and the rats are running everywhere. So there's lessons to be learned from all this. And I'm going to get my vengeance on NYCHA regarding Wise Towers. But thank you on many levels for this amazing process. And I think everybody feels good about it. I also want to just say thank you for your work on the Empire Station complex. I just call it Penn Station. I know you're working with Board 5. I know you're going to work together. But that's another big project. It's going to be even more complicated as Governor Hochul tries to negotiate her way. And I think she's already started by saying, I want to work with the community, a very different feeling. Also, today, you've already done the tour of Google's and the winery and the restaurants and the open space of Pier 57, but we went today. And they call it the apron, the walk around. It's freaking beautiful. I call it Community Board 4 Open Space Project because you did a lot of work for that. And it's going to be an asset from school kids using it to community board using it to the restaurants that are accessible, the food court. It's incredible. And it's all in your district. So again, I wanted to say congratulations because it wouldn't have happened without you. Of course, we're still working on all the issues with people who are homeless, trying to figure out solutions. I know that Brian Lewis from our office has been really working hard to bring the Business District Recovery Initiative to some kind of discussion and trying to work on the Midtown South Community Council, Homeless Forum, etc. And it seems to me that these are ongoing issues. They're so hard, but the Midtown Court, it should be open. So we're going to fuss about that. And then they should be given the kind of funding that could address some of these issues because they have some, but not enough. So again, the fact that you have the Midtown Court, not every district has it. It's a real asset and it has to be used and much, much more. I don't know what's going to happen on January 15th. There are people on the board who know a whole lot more about affordable housing and how to stop evictions than I do, but I am petrified if that date is not moved. And I do think that it's a real challenge. I don't know. I want to just mention also that I don't know that there are any of these centers in Board 4, but these fulfillment centers are growing. We're doing a mapping of them for the Borough of Manhattan. These are places where you can't go in. All you can do is order on an app and your food's supposed to be there in 15 minutes. So I said in the paper, I know this wasn't appropriate, who the hell needs an apple in 15 minutes? The problem is that the people who have to do the deliveries, they have a food pack and it says, I'll get your order in 15 minutes in huge letters. We're already trying to make sure that rules of the road are abided by. I've been meeting with the organizers of the delivery people. We have to make sure they're safe, that they get their money, that they don't get their, paycheck stolen, which is a whole other issue, and that they follow the rules of the road. So if you tell them that they have to get something there in 15 minutes, and that's going to be another challenge for them and for those of us who are trying to be safe as pedestrians. So on many levels, I don't even know if they're legal because they are warehouses in commercial districts. That's not allowed. So there's another disruptor that we have to spend a ton of time unraveling. So we've written to every agency, waiting to hear back from them. But it's another one of those, how in the world did they end up here? I also want to just mention the, fact that every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, as we have a discussion about vaccines, about funding. And yesterday's was excellent because we had the deputy controller of the city of New York who did a phenomenal presentation of Scott Stringer's yesterday released what's going on in the budget currently and in the future. So I strongly recommend looking at that. We'll put the information in the chat. And then we also had Dr. El Sadir, who is the new head. Well, she's the expert at Columbia Medical on all infectious diseases and vaccines, but she just was awarded by the city of New York funding, massive amounts, to study vaccines in the city of New York for the city of New York in the future. And I'm glad that she got it because she is a phenomenal force. So she's just worth listening in general. And then finally, just to let you know, December 12th at John Jay College, it's a Sunday from 2 to 4. We're having our holiday party and you're all welcome to show up, music and food. Congratulations to you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Lowell. And we look forward to the guy with the spiky hair. I think his name is Jeffrey, being the next chair, but you have been an awesome, awesome, awesome chair. And it helps to have Jesse Bodine, but Jesse Bodine, I think, has been graced with your leadership in many different ways. And I know he feels that way. So thank you very much. And I'm sorry I'm not there in person to be able to say that, because I think everybody feels that your leadership is something very special. And you've got a lot to show as a result. I mean, just thinking about all the positives that Board 4 has been through, you know, through the hotels and now these amazing new infrastructure projects that are contributing mightily to the community. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you very much, Gail. We got one more item before we get into the business session. Maria and Katie are organizing a donation drive. Maria or Katie, do you want to say something about this?
I'll make it short and sweet. And so last winter, CB4 did 2 drives and giveaways that we actually did in person. We also delivered some things to a number of the temporary hotel shelters in CB4. And this year, there are no temporary hotel shelters. So we decided we're going to do Amazon wish lists for different organizations in the community. That should be going out next week. Katie, is there anything you want to add?
Nope, just that we think that it's really important to do a holiday drive to support an organization in our district of our neediest neighbors. And we'll get you all the details next week. Well said, Maria.
All right,
Thanks, Lowell.
Thank you both. All right, we move to the business session. We start with BLP, Frank and Bert, items 1 through 8.
Yes, items 1 through 8, we would actually like to bundle them. Okay. We did some quick research. Frank did the research while it was a Bjorn before from talking about One Oak. The license at One Oak, for everybody's information, will not be up for renewal until March 2023. So we'll keep it in mind. I don't know if I'll be co-chair or Frank will be co-chair at that time, March 23. Who knows? But everybody will be aware that I'm sure there'll be some people who are on the committee now who will be on the committee in 2 years, and they'll know about the issue. But it's not till March of 23. Going back to the business at hand, items 1 through 8 to be bundled. Later.
Does anybody have questions on anything on the BLP agenda? Les, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a quick question on item number 6. That's 405 West 51st Street. Frank, I just wanted to know, and you know, where are we with the community, well, the block association's review on that site? Because the prior tenants of that site had a lot of complaints because of the noise and people on the streets. And so I just wondered, did the block association give you any input?
Yeah, the applicant actually postponed a month to allow them to meet with the 4953 Block Alliance, who was then basically satisfied with the good intentions of this applicant and were in support of it. You know, we got some stipulations that there's going to be no music or amplified sound outside, and the establishment has to provide contact information to the community where they can actually reach a live person with complaints if things get out of hand. But the operators seem very well aware of, you know, all the problems with Posh, and at least said the right things about them not wanting to replicate that experience for the community.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to transportation planning. Christine and Dale, items 9 through 11.
Yes, we have 3 letters. A letter to Governor Hochul. How I love saying Governor Hochul. For the Penn Station Empire Complex, the formation of the SAG group, Station Advisory Group. A letter about resurfacing 9th Avenue interim markings, and a letter about the open street at 22nd Street between 7th and 8th, which we heard about earlier. I have some friendlies from Betty. Thank you, Betty, which will be incorporated. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Dale. Housing, Health, and Human Services. There's one item. Maria, is this yours?
Lowell, I think Marty has something on the transportation letter. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Hang on, Maria. Marty, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, too. I found it hard to push the button. On item 11, there's a line about a permanent red arrow for a turn. Did you consider the problematic nature of a red arrow that would encourage people who want to use the 5-mile-an-hour street and turn anyway, even though it's a red arrow? It's like it's encouraging a traffic violation. And I'm wondering if there's a better way to do it.
Like a blinking arrow?
Yeah.
Something other than a permanent red arrow that would force somebody to make a traffic violation.
We could change that recommendation to like a blinking red arrow, so that it signals that you can make the turn if you need to be on the block, but you need to be at 5 miles an hour. Yeah, because you're right. It should track with the open street regs, and hard red would not track with that. So I think that is a good suggestion. We'll make that change. Thanks, Martin.
All right, thanks, Marty. Thanks, Dale. Maria, back to you. Is the court letter yours?
Can I?
Well, I'm going to present it.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yes.
Hang on. I think Jesse, you have a question on the transportation letters?
No, I don't. I just wanted to make sure people saw that there's 2 court letters in the shared drive. The only difference is that one of them I don't think had the correct attachments that had the statistics. So I just want to make sure people understand that the content of the letter is absolutely the same. We just realized we got notified very late today that when we updated when we put in the letter, that it had the attachment which had all the statistics that sort of back up the letter and the points in the letter. So those are attached. They've been attached. And they're in there now.
Okay.
Yes.
Time's a charm. Maria.
Thank you. I was going to say, are you sure? Thank you, Jesse. I was going to mention that at the end. So the letter that came out of committee was about Midtown Community Court, which is on 53rd between 8th and 9th, right next to Midtown North Precinct. Basically, the issue at hand was that the interfacing that happens at Midtown Community Court with low-level nonviolent offenders for social service programming to get them enrolled is not happening because Midtown Community Court is closed. And basically, the letter is short and sweet, and it just requests the immediate reopening and increase budget, increasing the allocation of the budget. Which is closed basically due to staffing levels. As Gail Brewer mentioned, we feel it's an asset to the community. So we're just asking for that it be immediately reopened. And that's it. And I was gonna mention also that the letter should have 5 pages of attachments. And that's it. Any questions?
Bert, go ahead.
Yeah, they closed it with a particular strategy that they want to close it permanently?
Good question.
Or they're just saying, oh, well, we have no money at this particular point in time and we don't have enough staff, but we'll get back to it.
Bert, did you read the letter? It sounds like you did not read the letter, but.
I did, but I didn't.
You did? Oh, okay.
But I didn't get it from the letter. It said, why was it being closed?
So the reason it's closed is because of staffing issues.
But is that real or not?
Specifically, it's actually about clerks. So Midtown, Manhattan, so New York County Criminal Court is going to be considered the priority. So staffing and clerks from Midtown Community Court are going to be downtown. And in fact, what I wanted to share with you all, if you didn't read the letter, so what's actually happening is the court is closed for court hearings and operations. So actually, you know, because of COVID, a lot of courts are closed and a lot of things are happening virtually. But even for Midtown Community Court, hearings are only happening once a week for 4 hours a day, right? And I'm going to keep my comments to myself.
Yeah. Criminal court has been reopened in a combination of virtual and in person. The criminal court does not have enough staff downtown. The downtown staff makes the referral for diversion to Midtown Community Court. There's not enough staff downtown, and therefore there's no one to refer uptown to Midtown Court. And when you get there, it's only open 4 hours. So there's lack of staff there too. It's an overall lack of deployment, and that's why we're saying openness. We found this out by accident in a discussion with the police precincts. We found it out totally by accident when Lauren from the court mentioned this. So that's why we're really on it now and asking our president's office to jump on it too.
My question is, and it's probably hard to answer. Behind all the immediacy of staff, we got to bring them downtown, that's priority, Is there something maybe behind, but they don't like the idea of community court?
Oh, no. This is a reopen, an issue of how to reopen the courts from COVID and where to put the resources to get. And also by it not being in person, you're not going to get engaged with social services virtually. It's much different than if you're in the court and saying, take this program and therefore you won't have other consequences. So it's really trying to engage folks that we talked about before who are repeat offenders, such like that.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Christine?
Yes, is there a description of if the people do not go to the court, to the Midtown court, what is the adjudication of the problem or the justice?
They stay in the normal criminal justice system and then have their desk appearance tickets, or if it's a more serious crime, they'll actually be at a court appearance. The problem too, Christine, is criminal court's so backed up, it's heavy with adjournments right now. So that's creating another issue for us.
So are we saying that because the court is not open, it's going to go into the jail? More people are going to go in jail?
Not necessarily jail. It could be a series of desk appearance tickets, and then you have to appear at criminal court to resolve those one by one. And if you don't show up after a period of time, you actually will be arrested, and then you would be put in jail.
I think it would be helpful to portray that in the letter, to say
the whole diversion issue, right?
Right. What is the effect if, if you don't have this process in place, this is what you are missing, and this is what is happening. There is burden on the court, normal court, and there is burden on the jail. And we thought we were going to get out of that. Not to mention that the people can have a better reinsertion,
outcome.
Right? So I think that would help to understand the impact.
Thank you.
Betty?
I totally support this letter and I totally support the program. And I just had a statistics question. The conclusion says incredible spike in petty larcenies and misdemeanors. And I didn't have time to read all the attachments and charts and stuff. Do those charts support that statement?
Yes, that's where this information comes from.
Okay, so maybe because the text didn't really support it about the different police precincts and their statistics. So
yes,
since
Betty, in the text it says see appendix for the ComStat report, and they're all attached. Those reports are from the NYPD.
Okay, so maybe just in the conclusion, the thing about the incredible spikes, as shown in the attached statistics or charts or something, just so you have some connection to it. That's all. Just
Got it.
it'll help. Thanks. That's it. I love the letter.
Sabrina.
Yeah, just like a comment, because I also had some problems understanding what was the function of the court. It was, to be honest, it was my first time learning about this court. But the way I saw it is that it also directs clients or to social services and to other services that they might need. And by when they're closed, it's like they give you a ticket, but let's say like you could benefit of having, I don't know, a substance use a referral, or you need some assistance in coaching and how to, maybe learn how to drive. I mean, or not to drive, how to be a better driver, but things are more like civil. So I think that's the way I think that's how I gathered the value of the court and why the fact that it's closed. It's not so much they're going to jail or they're going to, but it's more about civil society direction. That's kind of the way I saw it. I think that's what it is, Joe or Maria, if I'm not.
No, you are avoiding penalties by taking those trainings or services, and that's in lieu of a penalty. You are getting that, and that's the missing piece here, which is crazy.
Oh, so I think, Joe, and what I'm hearing is that like in the letter we should be including. I think Christine was saying this also. I'm getting a little confused, but definitely I'm hearing what Sabrina's saying about including the benefit. So it increases court appearance when you have engagement with low-level offenders, things like that. And it helps to deter recidivism. It's really about
providing the access to it's an alternate sentence. You are therefore taking these social services in lieu of a sentence, which is fantastic because it means people are breaking the cycle. That's the whole point of the Midtown Community Court. Maybe I should articulate those words, right?
But also, hopefully, the outcome is better. There is a higher percent of a positive outcome when you are with the court versus just getting a death ticket and not getting assistance.
Right.
Also, I believe
Dolores wants to add something here, I think, too.
Just to provide clarity, a community court works at getting at the root cause of why someone may be committing criminal acts. And by having an organization that can speak to a person and a judge that's asking probing questions, they have people directly there on staff that can say, oh, well, the problem is that you have an abusive person at home. We have someone that can help you right here. And it's immediate and it's in the moment.
In the same building.
Yes, it's in the moment of something having been assessed. And because of that, most police precincts that have a connection to a community court see recidivism drop drastically. And so this is not something new. Midtown Community Court has been here for decades and has been a great partner to Midtown North Precinct, and also a great partner within the community, where we find that a lot of the repeat offenders just need additional help. So if the letter can just give a little bit more background, even though those of us in the know, we know it, but the general public reading this may not understand that the community court has that partnership and is part of the criminal justice system that looks at root cause and tries to solve for that to prevent further crime.
So to recap, we're going to note that it's diversion from sentencing. We're going to add that it's about avoiding jail time and getting a better outcome. It's and that the services are by the same organization in the same building, and it helps us with dealing with repeat offenders. Do I capture everything that people have said?
I think we should mention something in there about deterring recidivism.
Yeah. That's what you said at the end.
Yeah, I said repeat offenders. That's I think a clearer word.
Yeah.
And then and Betty notes in the end, also noting to the attached ComStat reports. So it ties into the appendices.
Yeah. Very good.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate the conversation. We have two letters that came out of exec. The first one is from the Empire Station Working Group, asking Paul to present this letter.
Everybody, so you all heard the presentation from ESD. The letter was in Dropbox. We've had a lot of contributions to the letter, so I'll call them friendly amendments that I've already accepted. The biggest thrust of the letter is that the southern expansion onto sites 1 through 3 is not a predetermined established procedure, and that may or may not happen. But we feel like a lot of the components that are addressing community needs are coming onto sites 1 through 3. And so we're asking that those issues also be pushed onto the other sites. The problem we have is that those other sites aren't in our district. So we can't simply say, put housing on site 4, because that's not in our district and it's not our place to say so. It's also not our place to talk about relocation of Madison Square Garden, not our place to talk about the preservation of the most important historic sites, because again, those aren't in our district. So we're trying to keep this letter as, what's going on? Are you pulling up the letter?
Well,
Somebody share screen. So the focus of the letter is to recognize that CB5 is the major driver of the issues here. And so I've inserted some new language into the letter. Since the letter was put into Dropbox, I've inserted some new language recognizing CB5's more significant role in this. I'm also adding in, Christine asked for another bullet point on the transportation mitigation plans that are an improvement from the previous proposal, and a few other edits throughout the letter. But that's the overview. Anybody have any questions? Joe.
Yeah, could we add in after line 31, some language about if there is any relocation that it should be.
Hold on, Joe, can you hold on one second? The line 31 tells me nothing because I've made so many edits to this letter.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
It's at the end of the affordable housing production and timing section.
In that section, the second paragraph has now been completely deleted. So it begins New York City. That paragraph has now been deleted.
Let me just give you the thought, Paul, and you can figure out how to make it work.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That the GPP must provide for permanent relocation of residential tenants within CB4 and CB5 at existing affordability levels. That was the comment that was made. So in case we do have this going forward, we've at least put a marker out there. We had this in Hudson Yards and it worked pretty well.
Yeah, if you'll notice that we do have language in the conclusion statement about the ESD's guaranteeing relocation of displaced residents. Eugene and I spoke earlier today, and the income affordability line is not exactly right. The same level of affordability is not technically correct, so we struck that clause. But we do push for consistent affordable housing units and permanently affordable. And we're trying to push hard for rent stabilization issues, which is some of the issues of the residents. But again, it's language that we're going to try to put onto our site if our site gets developed. If our site does not get developed, we have to find a way to add language to say to CB5, you need to do this. So
I just want to note, I manage this for the Hudson Yard stuff, okay? Yeah. And we found that the issue that he mentioned today was really an issue, that it was not just relocation, it was at the current affordability levels. And we said there could not be, they had to be relocated within board 4. And considering this is 2 boards, I would just say within board 4 or board 5, because in that case, there was a push to relocate people well out of the neighborhood. Just putting down that marker, Paul, is important. Yeah. If and when it happens.
Yeah, would it be good within the neighborhood rather than saying a specific community district?
No, I think, why don't I shoot you the language, you can look at it and see how you can work it in, okay?
Yeah, okay. I just hate to say something should be done in CD5 when they're...
No, I said in CB4 or CB5.
Yeah, no, I understand. Okay. Yeah, send me something, I'll stick it in.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Marty.
Thanks. Amazing amount of work went into this, I know. In your introduction, you referred to people who texted or sent notes today. And I was one of the people that noted that the historic buildings, there's the New York Times article of today talking about the Hotel Pennsylvania. I know that's not in our district. And I know that you can't tell Community Board 5 what to do, but can you put a section in the letter that says something like concerns of Community Board 4 members about issues that are not in Community Board 4, but that we would like to note, so that we don't lose the historic housing stuff, which is important to many of us, and not saying anything about it seems wrong.
No, Marty, I appreciate that, and it is a struggle. And what I have is inserted a clause that reads, "We share the concerns of Community Board 5 and all of the issues that they address." So they are going to be raising the preservation of historic sites in their communication. As well, the communications that we sent from the entire working group, where it was both CB4 and CB5 combined, we did mention these sites specifically in that communication.
I'm wondering, I mean, Pam did a nice job in the beginning of this meeting talking about historic preservation. I'm wondering if you could, without belaboring the point, bullet some of the issues that are important to us, but that are not in our community, without delving deeply into it, so that everybody who reads the letter knows that we're concerned with these issues, specifically with these issues too, not the general statement that you just made.
Marty, it's a little bit of a turf war. And it becomes very dicey when we start opining on issues in their district. They've gotten up in arms about it already.
I'm not saying we opine about issues in their district. I'm saying that we opine about stuff that is of concern to us. And I know the wording would be a little tricky, but that the way I just articulated is the way I'd like to see it. These are concerns to us.
Well, I think you could say
historical preservation, yada, yada.
May I speak, Paul?
Yeah, please, Christine. Thank you.
I think we could have a sentence which says, you know, our community members have also raised concerns about the following general subject. And, you know, like preservation, et cetera, and you know, just maybe, would that work, Lowell?
I think if we word it the way Christine just said, that the following issues were raised by community members to CB4, you know, as part of our process. That way the board is not taking a position on things outside of our jurisdiction. We're just reporting that this is what was said to us. That may work. Paul, you okay with that?
Yeah, let me read back what I've written down. So Christina, I just tried to write down what you said. It says, our community members have raised issues of concern about the overall development area, including preservation of historic sites.
Yeah.
Marty, does that work for you?
Okay. Now David's going to weigh in on this.
I will.
Well, I just concur with Marty, and I'm glad we're including something, at least including a reference to historic preservation. I mean, there's a huge amount of historic fabric and what makes the city, you know, resonant and unique that's going to be lost. And there's no kind of creative or resourceful incorporation of any of that amidst the growth that's going on. It's just creating a blank slate, and you know, that's really old school, discredited urban planning, whether it's in Community Board 5 or 4. So I welcome the addition of at least a reference to historic preservation.
All right. I'll find a way to put that clause I just read into the letter someplace. Thank you.
Good. Carrie.
Yeah, hi. I'm not sure this is the time or place, but there were a lot of issues or negative impacts from the EIS that aren't mentioned. So you guys can tell me whether this is the right time, but the effects of shadows, noise, traffic, etc. And I know it's on the whole project, not necessarily, you know, lot 1, but I'm wondering, is this when we should be addressing some of that as well? Or I just want to throw that out there as somebody who actually read it, the initial proposal, which was, you know, not favorable for anything really. Thank you.
Right, and that's a great point, Carrie. And one of the things that we should remind everybody of is that there are going to be multiple layers of multiple hearings throughout this process. And the EIS process, we are now in that phase of it's the draft scope, and this is the comment period, and that is December 8th. So individuals in the community, even though we may not be able to address it because it's not within our district, people in the community can certainly testify at the December 8th hearing and talk about whatever issues are of concern to them. So that's part of the EIS process. As you heard Holly mention in her presentation, there's also going to be a national environmental review process done by the MTA on the actual rail lines. So that's a whole different process that will involve a public comment period as well. So if you think about the GPP as sort of the buildings, and then the NEPA process is the rails. That's the way I kind of break it down in my head. It's more complicated than that, but I try to simplify it that way.
Paul, on the transportation side, one of the things, first of all, their EIS makes no sense in the sense that this is like a massive gridlock. And what they are coming back with is saying, okay, we're really not sure what's going to happen. And with the congestion pricing and all the different things, we can't really predict what's going to happen. And therefore, what they are proposing is to do a transportation management plan, which is like every year or every 2 years, they are going to take a study and figure what's going on and then put the money aside to mitigate that. And I think that's fair, because if they don't do that, then they shouldn't be able to do the project. And or they could tell us, well, there's congestion pricing, therefore nothing is going to be a problem. And we don't have, so the transportation management plan is a good framework to address the unknown.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, and it is this unknown that really, that's the point of this particular letter, is that the sites 1 through 3 on that plan, if the southern expansion of the rail lines does not occur, those 3 sites don't get developed. And that's where the bulk, it's the only site that has 44% open space. It's the only site that has required housing. It's the only sites that have required community facilities. So that's really what we're trying to get across in this particular letter, is the revisions that they're proposing to the GPP, not because we've already commented on the GPP, which incorporates many of these issues we're raising tonight. But this letter is about the revision and the alternative plan that they're presenting as the solution to our problems isn't really solving our problems. And that's kind of what we wanted to have the thrust of this be about.
Paul, can I ask you a quick question?
Lowell is calling on people.
Oh,
I haven't forgotten you, Les.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Christine has the authority to interrupt because she's on one of the working group too. So she's
Christine co-wrote the letter with Paul, so.
Okay. I just had a quick question. The presentation by Holly was very good, and we've discussed much of what affects us, but what about disability access? Do we assume that all of that is being dealt with in the plan and the proposals?
No, never,
Yes.
never assume that.
Okay.
No, but in fact, any major new building has to be totally disability access, and every MTA access will have to be disability ADA compliant.
Yeah,
So those 2 aspects of the proposal, I think, are something that we can rely on. And every time they told you they're going to do all these elevators, that's for disability.
And Christian or Lowell, Jeffrey, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe one of their other commitments is that for each building that they build, there will be a public process for the review of the specifics of those buildings,
Yes.
which gives us the opportunity, Leslie, to raise accessibility concerns for each and every block that gets rebuilt.
Yeah, and they also promised that 31st Street between 7th and 8th, which they're planning to close to street traffic, would be still available for disability access for Access-a-Ride or whoever. So they have contemplated disability access in this plan, if you drill down into it deeper.
Thank you, Leslie. It's a very important issue. And now I miss Martin Treat.
We're channeling him.
We're channeling him. Chris LeBron.
Hey, yo. Thanks for this letter, Christine, Lowell, and Paul and Jeffrey. It was my second time hearing that presentation. In regards to public space, green space, it's noted that there's going to be an increase from 12 to 17%. Is that the best that they can do with this? And does the letter currently request greater green space access, at least with what we're speaking about within Community Board 4?
Again, Kristen, you look like you want to jump in.
Yeah.
I was just asking within Community Board 4. I apologize.
Right. So in CB4, they have increased the sidewalk width to a level that seems to be consistent with the buildings. What we don't know in the future is that once they increase the capacity of both stations, but those increases are not considered in this EIS, whether all these people will have space to go to. But then we'll have to raise those issues when we have the EIS of for the station.
Okay, so we can address larger green space, particularly the expansion of sidewalk during the EIS process.
Right.
Thank you so much, Christine. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and one of the other concerns that we have because we're only site one, that building that you noticed on the presentation today is one of the lowest FARs in the project. It's the lowest height in the project, and that's something we asked for because it's adjacent to Penn. It's a transition between a very residential area to a very commercial area. So we've requested that. But in order to also meet demands for more housing units, we may ask for an increase of FAR on that site to increase more housing units, while we're also asking for wider sidewalks so that we can have more green space. So we're kind of walking on a pretty fine line there, Chris, in terms of getting more space on the block that we have the most impact on while we're trying to address the needs that we want to have addressed for our district.
Okay, and just because you said my name, I just like 30 more seconds, Paul. Within the letter, we've had large infrastructure projects in CB4 before. The largest one that cut a scar through us was the Lincoln Tunnel, where we lost so many homes and tenements. Have you addressed it? That part of our concern for expanding and returning residents is because we have past history with infrastructure projects displacing residents of our communities in the past? Or is there a contextual history within the letter providing that logic, asking for more housing, as Joe Estucia had just said, requesting that there be placement of displaced current residents back in CB4, CB5?
Chris, that's a good idea. And I think if you want to shoot me a little bit of language on that, or I'll try to write up something about the precedence in our community is that blocks have been raised. I mean, going back to the original Penn Station, when they knocked down 500 buildings and displaced 6,000 people to build the Penn Station that everybody wants.
Exactly. That was underground. That was above ground and not underground before. Exactly. Ridiculous.
The idea of raising blocks and displacing people in business, and businesses too, Chris, by the way, not just the resident, because
certainly
we're addressing pretty heartily the affordable units that need to be replaced. I mean, we'll be losing about 150 to 200 housing units if those 3 blocks get raised.
Homes, yeah.
Homes, and we're getting about 1,800 new housing units, right? So new homes. So it's an increase in overall housing in the area. And that's something that there was 0 when we started this process. But the other thing that we're concerned about is those blocks that will be raised also have a lot of Class C office space. So a lot of those like nonprofit and artists and those sort of business enterprises aren't necessarily guaranteed a space in the new Class A office buildings that are going to be built. So I like the idea of including something about the precedence of just raising blocks and then building glass towers is not a practice that we want to see repeated in our neighborhood.
I appreciate that very much. I'll gladly help you with that.
Alice, you had your hand up before, but you put it down. Did you want to comment?
I found the answer to my question.
All right, thanks. Anything else on the Penn Station letter? Thank you, Paul and Christine. Last letter is about zoning text changes. Joe, I will let you take.
Oh, hold
this.
on. Did Brad's hand go up for this letter?
Oh, I'm sorry. Brad, you're trying to jump in on Penn Station?
Yeah, real quick. Paul, I know when we discussed this in the past, we also were going to put some language in about minority-owned businesses and space available, not just, I know we're going for the housing component, but there should be a component which isn't in Hudson Yards that can help minority-owned businesses get space at a reasonable price.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. And that is certainly a very strong point in our original, as I said, the letter we sent as a joint letter to EIS on the EIS position between the different community boards and the elected officials. So let me see if I can find a way to put another clause into this letter, echoing that issue. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Brad. Last call on Penn Station letter. All right, Joe, the zoning issue. You're on mute.
Yep, got it. So the board received 2 briefings on the MTA and DP sites, one on November 19th, Friday afternoon, and then today, this afternoon, on the 1st of December. In it, we were notified clearly for the first time how the zoning would be changed to accommodate specifically the MTA site. And so this letter speaks to not the developments or the income bands or anything like that. It's about the city's approach, basically DCP's approach toward rezoning. The first issue is the proposal is to rezone for the first time in 48 years a block in the preservation area of the Clinton Special Zoning District from residential to commercial. And we made it very clear in those meetings that the board would not support that. It is a horrible precedent. The second issue is a change in a special permit. Today, there's a special permit just for height and bulk. I note that other items in the letter that are minor. And the city would create a new special permit to vary height and rear yards and lot coverage. What that means in plain terms is that a denser building could be built in the preservation area and compromise light and air to the adjacent tenements. The majority of our preservation area are tenements, very deep buildings, 80 to 90 feet deep, very shallow near rear yards. And that's why there's a provision not to allow any variance from the rear yard requirement. So we wrote to both HPD and to DCP and stated, we do not support this zoning, we do not support the text changes, instead accomplish them through a mayoral zoning override. And as we dug into this more, it became clear, majority of them are flowing from the MTA's desire to have 30,000 square feet of office space. And that is what is creating a lot of these text changes. And the executive committee felt we should note that maybe that space should be reduced to avoid some of these very difficult and precedent-setting text changes.
Yeah, the other point that Joe made consistently with DCP was if it's done by zoning change, by changing the zoning as opposed to a text amendment or a mayoral override, we're going to face this everywhere because it's the kind of thing that developers just jump all over and say, all right, you did it once, you can do it again. So we made that point very clear to DCP this morning as well.
And the last thing I wanted to note, whenever text changes or rezonings have been proposed for an affordable housing project, DCP and HPD, they've come to the board literally 8 to 9 months in advance, talked it through, we discussed it, it's been a collaborative process. In this case, non-transparent, non-collaborative. And so we've asked for these projects to proceed in any way, just do mayoral zoning overrides and minimal changes to text.
Christine?
When did we learn of the need of office space for MTA? I mean, do they really need office space just like do they really need a parking?
So we learned that 30,000 square feet, Christine actually lives in the 2009 Western Rail Yard Points of Agreement. We learned of that though after it was signed, not before it was signed. The board has consistently said, and when we get to an actual project, we would engage with the MTA from the state level to deal with this. However, we've never been given a project literally until the past 6 weeks. That's been our problem.
And can they take those 30,000 out of the parking space?
Parking? Or,
Don't they have parking space? Aren't they going to keep parking space?
Yes, it includes office space on the first and second floor and below grade garage.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
we think we'll help the project if we can remove some of the overall MTA space, period.
Okay.
And I think Paul probably wants to address the same thing.
Yeah, I do. I'm opposed to the 30,000 square feet of office space because we have to do a commercial rezoning to provide it. And if we were to take that 30,000 square feet and make it into housing units, we could increase the AMI bands to meet more of the agreement.
And get more
Which I
units.
saw that clause in the letter, Joe. But as you were just talking about how the this is the first time I'm hearing and reading today's letter, that the MTA isn't really asking for this. It's coming from other directions. And so I'm wondering if it's worth sending a letter to Governor Hochul saying, we don't want this 30,000 square feet of office space in here. We want this for housing, and have it come, let's push from the top down and have a letter go to her and say, get rid of this.
I would recommend that at this juncture, we send this letter to both city agencies, and that immediately, if this project is certified in December, we engage at our January meeting for a governor letter. That's the way to go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We actually talked about that this afternoon, Paul,
Yeah.
about engaging with the state representatives and to get to the state to push back on MTA. And I'm hoping we can leverage the relationships we're building with MTA on Penn Station to go back to them directly on this as well.
Oh, no pressure then. Thanks.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to say, I'm not sure.
What relationship?
Sure. I got
What relationship?
I got it in the back of my mind, Christine. Mike Noble.
Yeah, I want to echo what Paul said and what Joe said, and let you know that, this 30,000 square feet is key to everything. And we've got to keep a close eye on what we're going to do with it, right? It tags this particular rezoning in such a way that it's just disingenuous. It doesn't belong there. It's there solely for the purpose of keeping this thing in that particular realm, right, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So
Well,
we got to deal.
my concern is that's what they say, but they're going to accomplish the rezoning of almost an entire block because of this.
Exactly. So they're using that as a hook, and we've got to grab it away from them and find a kind of unique way of doing that. And I don't know if we have or not. We've got to find a way to do that. That's my comment.
Thanks, Chris.
Super brief. Thank you, Lowell. Regarding the private parking, this is private parking that they want for the MCA office site. Is this correct?
They mentioned something about MTA vehicles also. We've never gotten a clear picture, Chris. We've never gotten that far.
Yeah. Well, as we're talking about congestion pricing, as we're talking about environmental justice, it just seems disingenuous to place private parking in a building where we are already one of the most congested traffic neighborhoods in the city. And that space can also go to, or rather be utilized for better waste management. And like you said before, and Paul said, more housing.
Chris, you're missing even the better irony. It's the MTA asking for parking.
I know. The irony is just, I'm drenched in it right now.
Betty?
Can I just, for clarification, they have guaranteed that it is not for staff. It's not for employee parking. It's for what they're calling emergency vehicle parking.
But again, I want to say they've said that. We have seen not one bit of documentation because nothing has been transparent on this.
I just wanted to, but I
this is the typical, USPS, etc., where they say, oh, this is for our parking, and then all their vehicles are on the street and the private vehicles are inside the parking lot. So I wouldn't trust that at all. And we have never seen in the existing parking, which is out there, we have never seen. We have never seen.
We're on record, and I'm just clarifying that is what they have stated to us. That's all I'm saying.
Right, but today, Jesse, it's all employee parking and has been for the past 2 years.
Exactly.
I understand. I am just, for the record, what they have stated to us so far.
All right, Betty.
Did you see me? Did you say me? See me? Say, yeah.
Yes, please.
You broke up for a second there.
Yes,
So Joe and Lowell in the meeting with city planning and whoever else. Did you make any progress in the logic that you set forth, particularly with city planning, who deals with zoning all the time? And did you meet with anybody high up in city planning?
We met with the Manhattan director and the person on the project. It is clear to me that when someone city planning says, we're doing this to clean up the zoning, that does not sound very good.
No, no. So I just mean maybe you need to get to a higher level in city planning.
Reported to us today, HPD had a further conversation, and city planning was resistant toward making a change as proposed.
So, okay, it's very upsetting. That's all, very upsetting.
Roberta.
Well, we need a new council member, right?
Roberta.
Okay, expand or maybe try and get more information on that last point. Did either DCP or HPD state more reasoning or logic toward amending the special permit as opposed to utilizing a mayoral zoning override? Did they
Yes.
offer?
I will tell you what they offered. It made no sense. We know we can do an amendment to the text, and that is preferable to a mayoral zoning override. And
But
that's
no,
that was almost verbatim what they said to us when I asked your very question. It was not like a huge rationale or there's this or there's that. It was, that's what we do, you know.
I think Joe may have used the words Trojan horse earlier today.
no, it certainly has that sound, but I was curious.
Yeah, it has that feel, right? It's just an odd thing. It's like, yeah.
But they're dealing with Joe Restucci as the good cop, so. Anyone else on this letter? Okay, that concludes our letter agenda. Jesse, do you want to do election results before we vote?
No, let's do the vote for the letters since it's all fresh, and then we can get to elections.
Okay, so we're going to do our usual roll call. Leslie and Mike.
I think I would like to though use the Joe Restucci method that he created last month, where when you report out your vote, you confirm that you have submitted your vote sheet. I thought that was a very creative way of making sure we all remember to press submit on our vote sheets.
I was about to say vote sheets, Jesse. I know where you're coming from.
Now, this is a truth serum. We're gonna do this now. So Leslie I am going to read, Leslie's going to write. This is my final hurrah here. So here we go, folks. We'll start out with Sarah Appleton.
I will do a yes on all and submission in progress.
Ted Arenas. Still here, Ted?
I know Ted had an event tonight that he was hosting, so I think he had to leave early.
All right, Roberta Barnett.
Yes to all, abstain on 13 and present not eligible 14 and submit it.
Very good. Christine.
Yes to all and submitted.
Gwen Billig.
Oh, wow, they're expensive.
Show us your screen, Gwen. Yes, what did you say, Gwen?
Yes to all. Got it?
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Leslie.
Yes to all. And as the co-secretary, I'm embarrassed. No, my vote sheet is not in yet.
Well, do it because you were remiss the last time. I'm going to call you out. Telling on you. Viren.
That's a lie.
No, it's not. Viren,
Please.
Yes to all, no to 13.
yes to all, no to 13. Jessica Chait,
Yes to all and submitted.
Elzora, is Elzora here tonight?
No.
No. Dale, how about you?
I am a yes to all and submitted.
Marty's cat,
Yes to all and submitted.
Paul Devlin,
Sorry, mute button. Yes to all, submitted.
Tina,
Yes to all and submitted.
Wendy Gonzalez,
Yes to all and submitted.
Jesse Greenwald,
Not here.
Candace Hewitt,
Yes to all and submitted.
David Holoka,
Yes to all and submitted.
Frank Pelosi, Frank.
Yes to all and submitted.
Sorry, brother. Josephine Ishman.
Yes to all, abstain on 13 and submitted.
Okay, Peggy.
Sorry, yeah, yes to all and submitted. Thanks.
Okay, Carrie Keenan.
Yes to all, abstain on 13, submitted.
Okay, Blake.
Yes to all and submitted.
Bert.
Yes to all, I am in process.
Very good. Chris LeBron.
Hello. Yes to all, and I am in process of submitting.
Very good. Jeffrey.
Aye on all and submitted. No present not eligible for me this month.
I know. I was just going to say that. You beat me to the punch. Oh my Lord. I'm going to have to go read.
Mike, I made it easy on your last night is what I did.
No, I'm going to have to go change the minutes. Anyway, Betty McIntosh.
Yes to all, submission coming shortly.
Thank you. Sarah Mills.
Yes to all, submitted.
Tina Nelson.
Yes to all and submitted.
And myself, yes to all, and I have submitted. JD.
Yes to all and submitted.
Mike? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I think you left me out.
Who's that?
That's Pete. I
Pete
should have been way
Diaz.
up on the list. Yes.
Okay, well, I'm looking at a form here that doesn't
It's
have.
submitted.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Pete Diaz, sorry.
Yes to all and submitted.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry about that. We'll figure that out.
No, I've got it. I'm down to Maria Ortiz.
Yes to all and submitted.
Alan Oster,
Yes to all, submitted.
Brad Pascarella,
First, I'd like to thank Lowell for his leadership. Lowell, you've been wonderful. I'm abstaining on 13 and yes to the rest. Submitted. Thank you.
Twee,
Yes to all, and I'm clicking submit now.
thank you. Joe,
Yes to all and submitted.
Sabrina,
Abstain on 13, present and eligible on 14, and yes to the rest and submitted.
thank you. Dolores,
Yes to all, submitted.
David Solnick,
Yes to all and already sent.
thank you. Katie Stokes,
Abstaining on 13, yes to the rest, but frankly, I completely goofed the first time I sent in my vote sheet. So I've actually voted twice this evening to just goof everything up. But
Well, no,
anyway,
they
I've
will
made it
note
clear. Say it again.
I say they'll note that.
Yeah, so I've made it clear on the second sheet where I'm abstaining on 13 that that's the final version. But in case your
Okay.
numbers are off, it's because I blew it. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Chicago?
Sorry,
Kit Tullers.
Are you from Chicago originally?
Yes
Kit
to all and
Tollerson.
submitted.
Oh, thank you, Kit. Hector Vasquez. Still with us, Hector?
I don't know if I saw Hector earlier.
Wow.
He's not with us. He let us know he might have conflicts with all of the work from the NYC group, so.
Wow. Mirnall.
Yes to all, submitted.
Rob Walker.
Submitted, yes to all.
James Wallace.
James Wallace is not going to make it tonight.
Oh, okay. David Warren.
Submitted and yay to all.
Okay. Leslie Williams.
Yes to all and submitted.
Alice Wong.
Yes to all and submitted.
Well, that's it. Now we've got Lowell Kern, the last vote.
Yes to all, submitted.
Thank you. That's it. Now we've got the election results, huh?
Jesse,
All right.
back to you.
Yep. All right. So I can report out that Jeffrey has won the majority of votes with 44 votes for him to be chair. Jessica Chait has won the majority of votes to be first vice chair with 44 votes. Leslie has won the majority of votes with 45 votes to be second vice chair. Hold on one second. Blake has won the majority of votes to be co-secretary with 45 votes. And Katie Stokes won the majority to be the co-secretary with 44 votes. So that is our board elections for 2022.
Congratulations, all of you.
Guys, don't be a lame duck.
Yay! Congrats.
Yay!
Thank you, everybody.
Congrats all.
Good luck to y'all.
Congrats, and thank you
Thank you.
all.
Jeffrey, we're looking to you, Jeffrey. We're all looking to you, Jeffrey.
Thank you
Motion
all.
to adjourn.
Great job.
The motion.
Yeah, great job,
to
Thank you
To
all.
adjourn.
Second.
Good night.
Bye, guys.
Happy
December.
Holidays.
Holidays.
Bye, be well.
Bye,
Congratulations.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice seeing you
Everyone have
all.
a happy new year. Won't be meeting till next year.
Happy New Year's.